Okay. Good evening, everyone. I'd like to call the meeting to order. It is 6 p.m. on September the 23rd. Roll call. I apologize for not being there. Marianne is home, ill. I also have COVID and I'm still testing positive, and so I'm still able to give it to others. So I thought it'd be best not to share that with everyone today. And Dan would not build me a cube to sit in, so you get this. So we do have all board members present, both on Zoom and in person. And Mike, will you lead us in the flag salute?
Civic.
I pledge allegiance to the flag
To the
of
flag
the United States
of the United States of
and to the
America,
republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
There's a slight delay, so it's not the best to lead the meeting by Zoom, but it's what we've got. Do we have any changes or additions to the agenda?
No changes or additions.
Okay. I will note one thing. It's not being added to the agenda tonight, but I wanted to make sure everyone's aware that the board is aware of concerns for a policy on transgender youth in our sports programs. And we are currently obtaining all the necessary information to ensure that we are following all of the applicable laws through OSPI, WIAA, the state. We're speaking with the district's attorney tomorrow, and we'll have more information available later in the week. But that's something that is being worked on, just so that you know. Great. Kayla, do we have anyone that wants to speak?
Yes, we have Jeff Estes as the only person signed up to speak tonight.
Okay. 1 second. All right, so before you speak, just our little spiel here. Our board has adopted policy procedure 1400-1400P for meeting conduct, and this policy and procedure are available on the school district website. If you would like to speak, we have the sign-in sheet by the door. Remember, total time allowed for public comment is 30 minutes. Each speaker has a maximum of 3 minutes. Public comment period is the only time that the public is recognized to speak. It's not a time for dialogue between the board and the public, but rather an opportunity for the board to listen to individuals on educational issues, and board members are encouraged to listen attentively. The board chair or superintendent might ask a speaker a clarifying question or respond to a specific comment. If you have a specific question or issue that you would like the district to follow up on, please let us know and someone will contact you within 72 hours. Finally, please remember that your words have impact, and you, not the school district, are responsible for your words. And we ask that you help us model for our students what a respectful and inclusive community looks and sounds like. Thank you. Jeff, are you ready?
Sure. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay, great. I was thinking of Gigi and Marianne, but that's okay. Thank you to the school board and administration for allowing me to speak. I'm Jeff Estes, and I reside in Startup. I want to thank the school board and the administration for the continued support of the AVID program. AVID students demonstrate improved academics, attendance, and college achievements. Students learn how to improve reading, writing, inquiry, organizational, and collaborative skills. They learn and practice public speaking. They develop higher levels of conversations, questions, evaluations, understanding, and critical thinking. They apply their improved skills in other classes. The AVID program at Sultan Middle School used to have 3 teachers and 3 tutors. This year we have 1 AVID teacher and 1, yours truly, AVID tutor. The OSPI student report card data is currently available on the OSPI website. And Isaac and Michael, if you guys haven't been on that, I looked at that, I really encourage you. It's a lot of information and data on there. I encourage all of you to view and reflect on it. The data indicates there is room for academic improvement not only in the Sultan School District, but in school districts statewide. The AVID program can and will improve student grades and test scores. AVID stands for Advancement via Individual Determination. Please consider fully supporting, encouraging, and funding the AVID program, a program proven to improve student academic success. Thank you.
Thanks, Jeff.
Thank
Thank
you,
you,
Jeff.
Jeff. Was there anyone else, Kayla?
No, that's it.
Okay. Do we have any questions or comments on the consent agenda? If not, can I get a motion to approve the consent agenda, please?
I motion to approve the consent agenda.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. We have Northwest Leadership Associates first for a presentation this evening.
Thank you. I'm sorry that a couple of board members are not feeling well, and I wish you a speedy recovery. I'm Wayne Robertson with Northwest Leadership Associates, here with the rest of the team, Mark Vinn and Laurel Browning. We are retired superintendents. The board knows pretty much all of this, but for the benefit of the audience, we're retired superintendents. We're part of an organization that does superintendent searches in the state of Washington primarily, a little bit out of the state, but mostly the state of Washington. Mark is a retired superintendent with Cedar-Woolley School District. He's also on the Educational Service District Board and very involved in Skagit County where he lives in Cedar-Woolley. Laurel just retired from the Burlington Edison School District. She's very involved in Skagit County government and nonprofits and civic activities. I'm the retired superintendent from Edmonds and Lakewood School District, and also a little stint in the Conway School District. And I'm also on faculty at Western Washington University. As I mentioned, we're part of a larger organization, Northwest Leadership Associates, and we're about a dozen, kind of varies from year to year, retired superintendents. Our founder, Dennis Ray, is kind of the emeritus superintendent search consultant in the state of Washington, and our chief operating officer, Tom Rockefeller, is a retired superintendent as well. They're kind of the corporate level. We're your search team, and then we have another 8 or 9 superintendents in the area that kind of round out. That's our bench. We have a good bench. So our company's been in existence for about 20 years. We've done over 380 searches. Mark and I have worked together for about 10 years now. We've done about 50 searches, a lot of them in this educational service district, Snohomish County, Skagit County, and Whatcom County primarily, but some outside the region. And Laurel's just joined us last year and has been involved in a few searches and is looking forward to being involved in this search with us. So we have a 3-member team. The reason we do that is we want to be readily available and extremely responsive, and that's our commitment to you. We have an agenda that we just put together, and Kayla has it up on the screen. I'm going to take the first 3 items, and Mark is going to take the next few, and then Laurel's going to finish it up. So the board has received. Well, first of all, we're honored to be selected by the board to do your search. We look forward to it. The timing is great. I think the situation is great. I think we're going to have a really positive search. We've already heard from some potential candidates who are interested, and we're going to move it right along. And the board has been doing some work already from the initial proposal, and so I think we're going to hit the ground running and be in good shape to move you forward. You're out early, but not too early. When we submitted our proposal, we presented 2 timelines. One of them would be later, the other one was the earlier. You picked the later one. You're still in plenty of time to finish this up and have a good transition window after your superintendent is selected. So the board has received our contract, and I think you have it as an action item later in your agenda. So we'll look forward to processing that along. Are there any questions about the contract? It's pretty straightforward. Okay, great. Okay, got to remember there are 2. Okay, so the timeline, I'm going to hit the high spots of the timeline, and it's still a work in progress. I know the board reviewed it and spent some time on it and spent some time on the focus groups, and we're still kind of talking about that until we get it finalized. But basically, there's kind of phases to the search, and the initial phase is kind of putting together the posting on WASA and WASDA. We'll get that out right away once we lock into a closing date, which you're pretty much doing tonight. And then we'll get it posted on WASA, WASDA, our website. We can post it on your website if there's, once Kayla gets that set up. And we've talked a little bit about using your website to advertise the search and to make information available to your staff and community. So we can get that moving along pretty quickly. And then an early piece is gathering staff and community input. And we do that in a couple of ways. We'll do an electronic survey, which can go out in English and Spanish, possibly other languages, but at least those languages for sure. That'll go to staff, that'll go to community, students, business community, anybody that has a voice that they want to extend into this process. We can get that up and running quite quickly. It'll be available off your website, and we suggest that the district push it out to any targeted audiences that you want to make sure that they get included. So that's one piece of the staff and community input. Another one is the focus groups, and I know you worked on that, and as Gigi mentioned, she just forwarded your draft of the focus group schedule. We'll take a look at that. I'm sure it's fine. Might have to take a look at the date. It's a little earlier than we'd anticipated, but we can revisit that and see how we can do with that. We'll find a mutually agreeable date, and we'll get that going. From my quick glance at it, looked to me like you had all the right groups in there, and we should be able to work that. We have a little conversation about multiple community groups and a separation of the high school group and the middle school. I'm sure we can do that if we can, put the calendar together. So those are two ways that you'll engage your community. And what we do with the focus groups is one of the consultants will meet with the group. We ask 3 questions. What's going well in the district? What are the celebrations? What are the challenges facing the new superintendent? Every district has challenges. And what are the attributes you're looking for in the next superintendent? Those same 3 questions are pretty much the electronic survey. So you get that, we'll get that information shortly after the finalization of the focus groups. Mark and Laurel and I'll put together a focus group report, and at one of your board meetings, we'll come and we'll share that information with you. Basically, that's a session of, here's what your community is looking for in your next superintendent, and then you have to weigh that against your interest in the attributes of the next superintendent. That leads us into another important part, the brochure. Mark's going to talk a little bit about that. But in terms of the timeline, we'll continue to work on that. And Gigi, I'll get right back to you after we get a chance to spend a little time on it. And we can lock in those dates and we can get the position posted. We can get going on the focus group schedule, and so you can advertise that and have plenty of lead time for your community so they can be on board. We'll work with Kayla on the electronic survey, and we'll work with Kayla on getting your district website together. Mark's going to talk about the brochure. I think we've got work to do on the timeline, but we're making good progress. Appreciate the time the board has invested in this already. A special meeting the other night. I'm sure that was productive. And we're looking forward to moving the search along and working with all of you and getting to know your community a little better and making this all happen and getting you the best possible superintendent. You want to take over on the next step?
All right. Well, I'm pleased to be here too, and thanks for having us here and being part of the Sultan community and helping you find the next superintendent for your schools. For the board, I'm talking to the board now, but the board, the main part of your time is usually at the front and at the back. And then we do the work in between. We do the recruiting, we have a list of people that we contact, and we reach out to people. The applications all come to us. We will vet those applications as they come in and do that. But before we can do that, we need to complete the brochure. And the brochure is that upfront piece that we need to have that allows us to distribute information, and it's electronic, distribute information to over 3,500 people on our listserv. And that's not just Washington or Oregon or Idaho, it's throughout the country and actually even overseas too. So we will, I guarantee you, get a lot of different candidates, a lot of from out of state, a lot of them from, not a lot, but there'll be a fair few from overseas as well, from the international system as well. So you'll have a lot to consider, but the brochure is important. We like to get the brochure out, just FYI, before the WASDA conference. And Wayne mentioned earlier, I'm on the SD board, so I'm actually a board member myself. One of the things, if you haven't been, and I think probably you have, most of you have been to the WASDA conference, is that it helps get the word out to people in our state. And it's a good networking for you as a board to go to sessions, but also if we get it out before that date, which is around the 20th of November, I believe, we'll have good participation from other school districts, from other superintendents and throughout. And you will have sitting superintendents that will be applying too. Assistant superintendents, sitting superintendents, you will have those as part of your candidate pool. Even some principals, I'm sure, that will want to apply. So we need to identify, once we do the focus groups and we do that report, we need to identify the challenges, the opportunities, and the attributes you're looking for as a board. And they will reflect what the community says, but they also will reflect what you say. And what we do is, when we get the focus group piece done, we put together a template for a brochure. It goes to you, probably the Gigi, and go back and forth. We have a desktop publisher that we work with, and it'll go back and forth in the final. When it's finally approved, then we get that out to our listserv and get it out to 3,500 or more people that we have for that. So once that's done, basically you'll get an update from us on the mid-search. You'll get an idea how things are going, and not who is applying, but based on gender, based on do they have their doctorate, based on their experience. We'll give you a pretty good idea of how many people have shown interest, how many people we've reached out to, and actually how many people have applied at that mid-search point, which probably, it looks like, will be probably early in January, somewhere around there, right after the first of the year. So the next step will be, once the job closes, and it looks like around February 14th, around Valentine's Day, the job will close. And then once it closes, we get the applications and we do our final vetting. And what we do as a team is we will make recommendations if you want, or you can go on your own, but we will give you the applications to look at, and then we will come together with you in a screening meeting, which is done in an executive session, where we go through all of the candidates, or we go through part of the candidates, or we do what you want us to do. But there will be, what we usually do is we have 3 categories. The A candidates, we think, really are worth interviewing. They're strong candidates for your soup job. The B candidates, maybe, maybe not. It's going to be kind of your call. And then the C candidates, and there are always C candidates, we don't think, based on our vetting and based on who we contact, and we dig deep, we really do dig deep, we will be able to present them to you, and you can take them from there. And out of that meeting, out of the screening meeting, we expect 5 or 6 semifinalists. And based on the what you chose as the format that we want to do on the focus groups, and then on the draft and the timeline, we would have that on a Saturday, and you would bring each probably in here, I would guess. It's open to the community, it's an open event. Each candidate would have approximately 50 minutes, there'd be approximately 12 questions. We help you with the questions, and then you ask each candidate. Some of you in the room have been through that before here and know what I'm talking about, but it's a pretty stressful piece of the whole process. From that, after that, we're done with the interviews, then we go into executive session again, and you choose 3 finalists. And each 3 of those finalists will come back the next week, usually on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, and spend a full day in the district. And we'll organize that, similar to what we're doing with the focus groups. They'll be able to go, to different parts of your community, and all your schools, of course, meet with different groups of people and that. And then the last part of the day is a community meeting to meet the candidate. And then the last part of that, after that, is a final interview and executive session with the board. And that's not so scripted, that's more wide open as that works. So, you might want to start thinking about, do you want your new superintendent to live in the district? There's ways we can word that. When we did Lake Stevens and Granite Falls last year, we kind of helped them through that and get to within a radius, but it's up to you how important that is. You might want to think about what kind of education do you want. Are you looking for somebody with a doctorate? Are you looking for somebody that has been a building leader? Or are you looking for somebody from the private sector? You will have probably some candidates that coming out of the military, for example. We've had those candidates before too. So, think about that. And then what kind of leadership experience are you looking for? Are you looking for somebody that's kind of gone through the ranks? Or are you looking for somebody that's an assistant soup, maybe in a big district like Everett or Edmonds? What are you going to be looking for there? Or is it wide open? I mean, you kind of got to think about what's important to you as a board, but also what's important to your community and what your community thinks too. So the brochure is the upfront piece. We need to get going on that. Hopefully we'll get that out before the WASDA conference. Once that's out, we do the heavy recruiting. We come with a mid-search report, and then once the job closes, we bring the candidates to you for you to process. You'll have a chance to see those applications prior to that screening meeting on that time. So, any questions on any of that? Does that make sense? Mike, you okay on that? Okay.
I
Okay.
can live with it.
Isaac, any questions?
No.
Mike?
No, no questions.
Michael?
Nope.
Mike and
Mary Ann?
Michael. Okay, so Laurel's gonna take over from here and kind of wrap it up, and then, if there's no further questions, we look forward to continue to work with you, and it's been so far so good. We've had a great experience, so thanks. Yeah, Laurel.
Pleasure to be here. Short story, Dan's father hired me for my first principalship, and Dan worked in Burlington years ago when I was there, so kind of fun.
Small world.
Small world, getting smaller when you go to retire. Next steps, we talked a little bit about the brochure work, the interview format, the candidate qualifications, and then the real heavy lifting in between all of that is how we advertise. And we advertise on all the professional websites, your school director's website, we contact them, we do the Association of Superintendents and Administrators, we contact the Principals Association, we have the Association of Latinos Administration group that we advertise on in Washington. We'll put it on your website, our website, and then we do a lot of recruiting. I know it's on number 11, it's just a heavy lift for us. We know a lot of people and we're really well connected. And you might get contacted by individuals that you can just send them our direction on that recruiting. And something for you to think about that helps us when we are getting questions in recruiting is to think about your compensation package, the contract that you'll be wanting to offer the superintendent. You can kind of start with looking at Dan's contract, and then sometimes the ESD, we talked with Dan and Gigi earlier, sometimes the ESD will help do some comparison like district sizes and give you an idea of what people are making and what some of their packages look like, and we can help you with that. But that's just something you're gonna wanna do in the next couple of months and not leave it to the tail end. You could think about if you wanna pay for moving expenses, things like that. And when we get through the process, we will do the background checks on your finalists for you so that you feel really confident that we've turned over every stone, and when you offer someone the job, there's not something crazy that pops up. And we have a firm that does that outside of our organization. And then when you're all done and you've selected someone, we'll work with you to make sure that you have all your communications ready to go for your announcement, and probably be working with you over there, and what media sites do you want that on, and whether it's newspapers, your website, and we'll help you with that, and we've got some templates that we will give you if you need that too. Did I miss anything?
Excuse me.
Bless you.
Anything?
No, just to emphasize the piece on the, when candidates contact us and just say, hey Wayne, number one question they always ask, or they should ask, is what's the board like? That's because you seem like a pretty good group of people, even though you're sick, I'm sorry. But what's the board like? They always ask that. But the second thing they do ask is, what's the salary gonna be? What's the compensation gonna be? How am I gonna be able to, if I live in Sultan or Monroe or Snohomish, how am I gonna afford to live? And if I have to move, am I gonna be able to afford it? So those are the two main questions that we get asked, and so I guess
Yeah, early on.
earlier
people
we
ask
know that
that,
better, so, yeah.
Well, we met last Thursday because we were doing a Thursday, it's an open meeting, kind of a prep meeting for our board meeting since we're such a new board. And so one of the things that we did go over was salary. Dan, Kayla, and I have already gotten copies of contracts from all of the superintendents in the area so that we can look through those, so the board can go through those together and see kind of what everyone else is offering and stuff. So we're already a couple steps ahead of you a little bit, so
That's good to hear.
we're trying to do this like
good to hear.
the right way. So we're, trying to gather as much information as we can so that we do everything transparent and properly.
Well,
No,
Mike
I think
offered
you're,
to
I
help
think
him
you're
back.
off to a really good start in terms of the contract and the planning that you've already done. And you, as a leader, are circling back with the other board members, so you're not out too far out in front. No, good for you, good for you.
And then as far as the date goes, we did the 3rd of October. We thought about that just because early October was what we had discussed in our last meeting. We're flexible. We can change that if you want. We can come up with maybe 3 more possible early-ish October dates and get to you if that works, or.
How about you and I get on the phone maybe tomorrow morning,
Yep.
and we can kind of, lock into the dates that I can get calendars from these guys, and we can get that a little closer?
Yep.
Yeah,
That would
that's
be
great.
perfect.
I appreciate the flexibility. And like we said all along, the proposed timeline was just a proposed timeline, so it has to work for you, and we have to be available, so.
Yeah.
We'll make it work.
Awesome. Well, thank you for coming tonight. I
Thank you.
appreciate it. Anyone else have questions or comments?
Okay, good to see
Awesome.
everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Traffic wasn't too bad.
Good time.
We lucked out.
You weren't here on a Sunday or a
Nice to meet
Friday.
all of you.
Nice to meet you.
Thank you.
See ya.
Thank
Good to see you guys again.
Travel safe.
So you're saying you're not gonna help him, Tyler?
No.
All right. Do we have any committee and association reports? I have down the SES and Gold Bar principals are going to talk. Are there any other committees or anything? Or is that going to be it?
Nope, that is it.
So SES and G, I can't see who's here. I'm assuming Heather's here. Is Aubrey here also?
Aubrey is also, yeah.
Hi. Oh, just Aubrey.
No,
There's Heather. I knew
Heather's
Heather
here
was
too.
going to be there.
Can't do this alone. All right, thanks for having us tonight. Ms. Anderson and myself are going to talk about some celebrations, some plans, some goals for 2 elementary schools in the district. I will speak about Sultan Elementary, and Ms. Anderson will talk about Gold Bar. So the first slide goes over our school improvement goals, or our school improvement plans. It's a document that's required that we do each year. The state requires significant more work than what looks like on the screen here. We tried to water it down a little, so it's just layman's terms about what we're focusing on. It's about an 8 to 10 page document when it's all said and done. It's part of our Title I requirements and part of our school improvement process, but the whole document is available too if you feel like going to sleep reading something. So it does have a lot of great things in it, but for Sultan Elementary, our 2 main goals, and I say main goals because we do have a third around behavior, but for tonight's purposes, we are talking about positively impacting growth and achievement in mathematics, and to positively impact growth and proficiency for our students identified as ML. or as the state would say, EL or ML or ELL, all meaning the same thing, but the acronym was gonna get used in different ways depending on which document you're looking at.
For Gold Bar, we want to just to continue to emphasize the work around our essential standards, and we want to see students performing at or above grade level on all of the essential standards for both reading and math. We also recognize that we are the community of Gold Bar for all intents and purposes, and so we want to focus more on our after-school programming offerings and use that to encourage community involvement, attendance, and overall help achievement.
And the next one is going to talk about things that we measure at the elementary schools. There's a lot of things that aren't listed here, but our main metrics that we use, attendance rates. We like to see students. Well, we're expecting to see students attending at least 90% of the school days. iReady is a program we use to do a diagnostic and individualized instructions in reading, math. We get growth and proficiency reports there. It helps teachers differentiate. It also aligns with our math curriculum that the board adopted last spring. So those two things are the same company and go hand in hand. We have the benchmark assessment system, which we refer to as the BAS. It is a one-on-one reading assessment with every student at their we find their instructional level. So every student is taught reading in small groups at their instructional level. And then Smarter Balance assessments, reading and math. The state requires those for grades 3 through 5 at the elementary level. The science is also assessed, but it's a different acronym. And then our common formative assessments. I'll let you talk a little bit about how that ties into PLC.
This year we're in year 2 of the PLC focus, and we're working on aligning our assessments with the essential standards and ensuring that all grade levels have common formative assessments, so we're not having a 3rd grade teacher in one classroom measure the math unit in a different way than we would have a 3rd grade teacher in another classroom, so we're evening the playing field there. And the primary focus on this slide is just throughout the year, we know we're going to be coming back and giving you updates. We're full of acronyms, and so when you hear BAST, SBA, iReady, CFAs, those kinds of things, we just want to make sure you're familiar with language.
And highlighting the fact that we do use multiple sources of data for, we'll talk about how these go into our decision makings a little bit later too, but it is nice to know the amount of data points that we have that allow us to inform our instruction and interventions especially.
These ones are just the most quantitative, many other qualitative forms are used as well. So.
Awesome. Next one. Talk a little bit about this and I'll let Heather chime in. Attendance rates, it's part of what we mentioned is important to us. The state would say it's only about 5% important for elementary schools as part of their formula, but we also want to make sure that students are in seats learning. We know that missing more than 10% of a school year would be considered chronically absent. So that's about 2 days a month. And so these are our attendance rates for both schools over the years, over the last, whatever that is, 7 or 8 years.
What got cut off on this, sorry, is right where you see that drop go from like 92 and 90%, that's that's COVID. So you'll see that we've not recovered fully from COVID when it comes to attendance rates again, so.
Absolutely. Last year, and the graph is cut off. If you looked at OSPI and looked at this graph, there would be one more data point, and it's down in the 40s and the 30s. There was an error in the uploading of attendance data from our school information system last year, and so it significantly brought us down. I think I'm around 48%, and Gold Bar was around 30% attendance, which is terribly inaccurate, but it was too late by the time it was noticed, and the state had already reported it. And so they're aware of the error, and we are as well.
I think several other schools were impacted by it as well.
It wasn't just us, but it was noticeable.
And it's something that you guys should be aware of as a board, because the community is not aware, because it's not published in some big banner that, oops, our data is wrong on OSBI's report card.
But if somebody wandered onto the site and looked at it, they can
That's what
draw,
they would see.
draw opinions that, is it, based on what actually happened.
Right. And then the other thing that we wanted to point out with attendance rates is that we're not just simply looking at did they show up and are they here, but we're also tracking things like family engagement, how many families are showing up to various things, and conference attendance. Typically at the elementary school, we're pretty high, 90 to 100% attendance rates at our conferences.
So what was the data that, it was an error, but what were the actual numbers?
We don't know, we actually don't know the actual numbers, because our Power School system is what reported to the state. And so we're, last spring, I met with OSPI and Julie Grass, she works in our technology department, and we worked through trying to figure out where the problem came in, and they changed some rules about what kind of absence is unexcused as opposed to excused, and if it was 50% of the day or not, because more than 50% of the day will default to a full absence, or less. And so something in our reporting system wasn't, some of the codes were inaccurate, to where a student might have got an illness, for example, and it would be reported IL, which would be an excused absence, but if they showed up halfway through the day, it wasn't counting as student
So
attendance.
teachers take this attendance every day within this system, and then when we have to report or it gets uploaded, you're talking district-wide, 80 days thereabouts, and so something within that upload, hard to pinpoint exactly what it is unless it's like.
It makes it challenging. The state gives us a report, a preliminary report to review, and it's usually in a spreadsheet with about 700,000 cells, and we're supposed to somehow make sense of it all, and then by the time it gets reported, it's like, oh, whoops, that didn't look right, but, I mean.
Is it working now? Is it corrected?
They're working on correcting it, and OSPI did tell us that we could, last spring, that we could file whatever it's called, an amendment or whatever it was, to try to correct it. It would not change anything on their site that is publicly shown. All it would do was change some internal things, and they agreed that it's probably not worth it. But we're hoping that it is remedied this year, and we're keeping a closer eye on it as we start running some of those reports. But yeah, that's why that graph is cut off there. We tried to make it look nicer.
Looked pretty bad for last year.
We wanted to give you an accurate representation of what our attendance rates really are, because that's pretty typical. After COVID, it's been harder to, because of the COVID rules, really, it's been hard to keep our consistency and get those attendance rates up, just due to the fact that kids are having to miss at least 5 days, or it was 10 days, or whatever it was. One COVID case would put you chronically absent according to the state for the year. So it's hard to recover when kids couldn't be at school. All right. Do you want to dive into this one?
So this graph, we talked about iReady earlier as a growth measurement in reading and in math. These tiers that you're looking at here, the shaded tier on stage right, is from the fall, what our fall scores were last year, and then the darker tiers are from the spring. And so in the parentheses, you'll see where the growth rates occurred in reading and in math. So the red obviously is at risk for tier 3. We want to see that percentage as low as possible. The green is your tier 1. We want to see that section of the triangle as large as we possibly can. But also just, we really want to consider where are we starting the year, and what type of growth are we seeing throughout the year. So give me a second to take a look at that and see if there's questions you have.
It's worth noting too that every year in the fall, the majority of our students are performing in the, not at grade level. Green would mean that they're at grade level standard, and usually at the beginning of 4th grade, for example, students aren't at grade level standard yet in 4th grade because they haven't had 4th grade yet. So our fall triangles in this case, or our fall data is usually skewed pretty far in that direction, because we're assessing students on end of grade level standard. So the darker colors here are the one on your left, I guess, you're looking at where it says final diagnostic underneath. That is what we do in May, and that's where we would expect the majority of kids to be at or above grade level, being the green section. Yellow would be students who are having some foundational skills but still need a little bit of extra support, and red would be students that are deficient.
These scores, if you guys are curious in the future, they are able to be broken down by grade level, by classroom, by student, but this is just a school-wide. We do not get a fall score for kindergarten, because kindergarten doesn't take the iReady assessment until winter. So you won't see kindergarten reflected in the fall to spring.
Any questions on that? So we try to make colorful graphs so it's easy to figure out. Next one is the benchmark assessment. We do this 2 or 3 times per year, depending on the student and the grade level, and if they're at or below or above grade level. So in the fall, every student will be assessed by their classroom teachers. It's a one-on-one reading assessment that takes anywhere from 15 to 75 minutes, depending on the levels and how many attempts it takes to find where that student is at an instructional level and what kind of needs they have when it comes to reading. So we find their strengths, and then we find what else is it that they need, those behaviors of a reader. We don't talk about levels with students. It's just an opportunity to read to their teacher. We don't refer to it as an assessment, or we try not to anyway, so students aren't feeling that pressure. But it is an opportunity for every teacher to sit one-on-one with every student and have an opportunity to hear them read and ask them some questions and figure out where it is that they need to be instructed at, so that we can ensure every student throughout the year is being instructed at a level that is appropriate for them and books that are appropriate for their needs. If those students are below grade level or above grade level, they're grouped with similar students for their instruction. We don't do whole group instruction for reading where every kid's got the same book, except at small parts where it's teacher-led stuff. But
one component to the BAS that I particularly appreciate is that the comprehension piece is a conversation. It's not a written, write a 3-paragraph summary to what you just read. It's a conversation between the teacher and the student with some questions specific to what they might have read within the text, what they might know in context to the text. And so I really appreciate that piece of this assessment at the elementary school level especially.
And the BAS is what we use. We're both Title I schools school-wide, and so the BAS is a required assessment that we have to do multiple times a year to report our growth and our interventions to the state. So every year in July, or before July, in June, Heather and I spend a fair amount of time reporting all the data to the state that is compiled through our title departments, through Elena and Lisa at the 2 schools, and we report the growth with that and a few different things, but it is part of our Title I plans and requirements. So there's that component too, to maintain our compliance with the federal Title I requirements. All right. This slide had colorful numbers, but they're not very colorful anymore. They're fall colors because we went with the fall themed. But this is the Smarter Balance Assessment and the WCAS, which is an acronym we didn't tell you, but it's the Comprehensive Assessment of Science. It's the science state test that they're required to take in 5th grade. So in 5th grade, students are assessed on standards from 3rd through 5th grade, and it's reflected as a 5th grade score in science. But see our trends for the last 3 years. We put the last 3 years, so coming out of COVID, the 3 most normal school years that we identified there in ELA, math, and science for the 2 different schools. As you can see, the math trend is going uphill, which is a great place to be. We know that math in our district is a significant struggle, and it's not lost on us that starts at the elementary, and we like to think that we're doing a pretty good job of growing those scores and maintaining those scores to sending kids out as proficient as we can at this point, with goals at both schools to continue improving there.
I would just comment, one of the things you can see in both schools that over time, even though it isn't every single year, the trend is upward. And ask that you guys talk about the relationship with what are we trying to accomplish with PLC work and making sure that kids are exposed to and receiving excellent instruction in the essential standards, and we're assessing those things because people can be working really hard, but if we're not aligned, you're not going to get results.
A significant shift that we made at Gold Bar in the last couple of years is we're considerably smaller than Sultan Elementary. There's no denying that. Grade level teams at Sultan Elementary are bigger. I mean, how many teachers per grade level team? 5
or 6.
You know, at Gold Bar we have teams of 2. And so when you do things like departmentalize in the 5th grade, which is what we'd done before, where we'd separated math from ELA, it actually it significantly impacted the amount of collaboration between the teachers, because one was responsible for ELA and one was responsible for math, versus having a collective ownership of the students and a shared responsibility for all of them. And so we moved away from that model in the last year, and with an effort towards that collaboration and the shared ownership of students, and we've seen a significant impact as a result. So if we were a larger district where maybe there was teams of math teachers at the 5th grade and ELE teachers at the 5th grade, that kind of, it might be a different story, but with as small as we are, it just wasn't working.
Yeah, and I would say that this growth, as well as just the growth of our teachers as well, I would attribute to that PLC process. To answer your question, there's a significant amount of time and effort that goes into that work, and really breaking it down to focus on what students need to learn and how we're gonna know that they learned it. It seems like such a basic question and a basic topic of, well, the state tells you what they're supposed to teach, but the reality is, and our teachers understand that, is there's no way we can teach everything the state tells us to teach. The Common Core is way too big, and so we have to break that down to the things that are essential, that we are gonna guarantee that students are gonna leave that grade level knowing, and then do everything we can to ensure that that happens through interventions and enrichments and extra time and support, and that wouldn't happen if we didn't have the opportunity for those teachers to work together, if they didn't have the time built into their schedules on Fridays to make that happen, and if we didn't have the opportunity as instructional leaders to support that work moving forward. So is a crucial component. It would be the vehicle in which is taking all of our things with us forward. It's not a program or something we sign up for, but it is a philosophy in the way we do things here at Sultan Elementary and at Gold Bar, is that it's a non-negotiable that we work together as colleagues and collaborate, because we're better together than we are by ourselves when it comes to students, and they deserve that. So it's part of the reason why we expect these to continue increasing.
And at our October meeting, and then I'll go back, middle school, high school will be here doing the same thing. And then we'll break out from there as the year goes on and give you exposure to different parts of this so that you understand what we're doing. Just speaking of the standards, that Heather, somebody, there's enough standards where kids could go to school until they're 27 if we're gonna try to accomplish them all and stay in high school that long.
Can we budget for that?
Yeah. Sure. This next slide, I'll just give an overview. We've talked about a lot of this stuff already, but it kind of ties into that PLC work that we do, specifically to state assessments, the SBA and the science assessment. We're able to look at what they call a blueprint of what that assessment looks like in advance, and that tells us, hey, these are the depths of knowledge, the questions that students are going to be expected to know in these different domains and targets, or claims and targets that tie into the standards. So this standard is a depth of knowledge 3 or 4. That means they're going to need to really be able to do a lot of work and understand that standard. It's not just recalling information or doing a standard algorithm, but it's applying some of that knowledge. And so our teams are able to sit and look through those, make sure those align with our essential standards. So if students are being assessed or expected to know deeper level knowledge things, those are things that we're making sure we're spending enough time teaching. And then after the assessment, we're able to then look at a report and say, now, claims and targets, how did our students do, and where were our deficiencies as teachers, meaning our students didn't perform as well as we had hoped, and how can we adjust our instruction or our essential standards to make sure those things align. So that's essentially what that slide talks about, is just the work that goes into the backside of state testing. Is we can hate it, because I think most people do, and it's an inappropriate way to assess if students know things, expecting them all to do it the same way on the same time. But it's what we have to do. And at least we're able to pull some information out of that and find it useful. So, next. The WIDA. So coming out of COVID, the state decided that they would change some things around, and we went from the ELPA to the WIDA, which are 2 different EL, ML, ELL assessments to assess our students, dual language students. And so if you look at the trend data in the OSPI's website on the report card, we were doing pretty well with the ELPA, and then we dropped off to the bottom of the earth when it came to the WIDA. Totally a different assessment, and it was the year after COVID, the state decided to roll that out. So unfair to our students and our teachers, but it's what we did anyway. With that, both schools became targeted schools from the state, to where they said, hey, your EL progress isn't sufficient enough, and you're gonna be getting some extra supports and some extra hoops and some extra stipulations. And I say it was unfair because it felt unfair to the students and the teachers who have been working really hard to have the goalpost moved without any planning, it seemed like. And so in 2022, specific to Sultan Elementary, we're still in this cycle. Gold Bar has moved out of it. Sultan is still in it because it's a 2 or 3 year term that you're in it for. So in 2022, we exited 4% of our ML students, with only 9% progressing, which is what got us identified. We were less than 10%, and so the state said, that's not good. So after 1 year, we were put on, it's normally a 3-year average, but it was after COVID, so they used just the 1 year, the 2021 school year. So in 2022, that's where we were. 2023, we exited only 3% of our students, but we've moved up to 48% progressing. And then last year, we had our most successful year yet. I will attribute all of that to the teachers and the paras that worked with those students. They did a phenomenal job working hard for those kids to help understand the concepts that were needed and the assessment that they were going to be able to take, and all of the different components. And we exited 19% of our students and 51% progressing. Fourth grade alone exited over 40% of the ML students, which was our highest population in one grade level. And so it was significant work, and it was something that we celebrate. We are still a targeted school by the state for our lack of progress for the 1 year that we were below 10%. But we're hopeful that after this year they'll see the great things we're doing and stop giving us extra money to support it. But the money is well received. It helps, but that's not what it's about. So kids are making progress.
So, yeah, we moved out of that targeted support. We're under like foundational supports this year, which basically means that you've got a year to kind of sustain some of the practices that you've been doing in the past. This last year, our ML program went under a program review, and it was determined that the model that we were using at the elementary school model needed an adjustment, and so they've switched to this supportive mainstream model, which in essence means that there's an ML teacher at both schools, assigned to both elementary schools, the middle school, and the high school as well. And that teacher will collaborate with the classroom teacher to help make sure that the scaffolds, the supports, the attention to language proficiency standards, all of that stuff is addressed within their daily lesson planning, so that the language that they're learning in the classroom is supported to help them with their proficiency. I would say at Goldbar Elementary, one of the things that's not maybe listed on there that has had the most significant impact is just that connection with the family and the culture. And what we haven't talked about in all this, because we're going with the quantitative, is our social emotional learning focus at both schools around, just growth mindset and empowerment and student agency. So that's not quantified on here, but it's an important piece of the vision.
It is a nice part to bring that culture and that community in. At Sultan Elementary, we have 21 different languages now, about 104 students that are identified as ML right now out of the 700, and so it's a significant part of our population. And we don't have somebody that speaks all 21 languages, unfortunately, but it is nice to be able to have the teachers and the support staff, the limited support staff that we do have, to move the kids forward.
So all of that in a nutshell to say the data doesn't do us any good if we don't do anything with it, right? It should be driving our instruction. How we respond to all of those measures is kind of highlighted in the sum of these bullet points, but that is what we're using to help design our differentiation, to target our interventions, to enrich student learning if they're hitting at the higher end and exceeding those standards, how we're creating the small group instruction, and how we're designing our professional development for our staff. And so when we're hearing, I see the data, but I'm not sure what to do with it, that's how we're deciding, well, what kind of professional development is our staff asking for, and how can we get that to them as they need it. So just share that we actually do something with the data besides just post it on a website.
Turns out.
Yeah.
And the last slide? No, the second to last
More
slide.
slides.
You guys have probably seen this, but it's the 3-year process that I know the board has signed into and signed off on of the process that we are taking as a school district. It might be a 3-year process here. For a lot of us, it's been much more than that. But I'm glad the district has committed to being consistent and committed to this process, and that we've seen within our own schools, but also at the secondary level and working with our colleagues, the commitment that they're gaining of understanding that we got to work together and we got to work for what's best for kids, and that's hard work, but there's a lot of things that'll come out of it that'll be positive, and as long as we stay the course and keep moving forward.
And I think the last one is us just inviting you to join. Those are the dates that are already calendared for contract that PLCs will be meeting as teams on Fridays. So if you're ever available and would like to come see a PLC in action, that's really the best way to truly understand how this this data is being used and how it's impacting our classroom setting, so, we'll make sure you have those dates and.
Yes, absolutely. I will echo that. I'd love more than you know to have any of you come to any of these. And, we try to bring the school and PLC process to the boardroom, and we would love to have the boardroom visit our classrooms and see our schools and see this work in action. We can come up here and talk about it and, try to stay attentive and all of the things, but at the end of the day, seeing this in action, seeing the teachers do this work and have these real conversations about kids and all the work that they do is hard to put into a slide.
We sent out the school visit list, and some board members have already signed up for dates, so they'll accompany me on a school visit where we will look at data, visit classrooms, etc. But I will have, Kayla will send this out.
Yeah.
And if you guys, and we'll get the times, because it's different at secondary than it is at the elementary. But
That'd be great.
there's nothing that matches seeing what's happening versus hearing about it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you both for coming and presenting. It's nice to hear that the PLCs we invested in, that you guys like it and that you feel it's making a difference, sounds like.
I couldn't imagine doing the job without it, and I will go as far as saying I wouldn't work in a district that doesn't do it, so.
Well, keep that in mind, Aubrey.
Keeping it in mind. All right,
Thank you guys.
Thank you,
Anybody have
guys.
questions or comments for them before they run away?
No.
Thanks, you guys.
They're gone quick. Thank you, guys. All right, Cameron is volleyballing at 7 p.m. tonight, so we wish her luck. She's not here for Student Voice. We have Student Achievement.
So, I don't know, do you have the student achievement? Who's doing that? Me?
Yeah, yep,
Can
so,
I just introduce this family, can they come up to the stage?
yep, so we have,
Oh, good. We've got
Angel.
a student
and
here
this
and
is
family.
Haley.
Awesome.
So we have a student from Goldberg Elementary, Angel Ruiz Rodriguez, and he passed the WIDA with a perfect score. Wow! And that is part of what Aubrey and Heather were talking about. And he also passed SBA, the more comprehensive assessment, ELA with a level 4 and math with a grade level 3. I meet with kids that are wanting to do alternative programs, and sometimes I was speaking with a couple of kids the other day that only spoke Spanish, and so we had to have an interpreter, and I said, I couldn't imagine how difficult it would be for me to go be plopped in a classroom with another language, have to figure it out, but what you've done here is remarkable, and as a family you can be so proud of him. He has done just really good work. And Miss Berry, are you his current teacher?
Yep, and his
Yeah.
previous teacher.
And his previous teacher, and so I can't, I can only imagine how hard this is, but to do this and do it at the level that you've done it is just really, you did, okay. It's
His-
really remarkable.
The second grade teacher sent an email because she couldn't be here today, and she just wanted to share out how much Angel has worked on growth mindset and just believing in himself. He came into the second grade reading at a kindergarten level, and so to pass the WIDA with a perfect score.
Third grade. He came into
Third grade, excuse me. Third grade, reading in the kindergarten level, and then to be able to pass both the math and the EL portion of the SBA and the WIDA with the perfect score is demonstrates.
That is something that you and your entire family can celebrate. And so, Angel, I have a question for you. Do you have some words prepared?
Speech.
You've got to have something to
this
share.
goes with it. Angel came to me last year as a kid who did not like to come to school. Is that a fair judgment? Would not talk to me for a very long time, and slowly broke through this little hard exterior shell, and we made it to tender biscuit on the inside that loves school and loves learning and tries his hardest every single day, and it shows in everything that he does. And it's just phenomenal that I, A, have the opportunity to teach you again, but B, that he got a perfect score on the WIDA when that's hard for fully English speakers to get. So, that's pretty cool.
as well.
Okay, we have a
Good
picture
job,
of
Angel.
you and Mom.
Give me more pictures.
Congratulations.
That's awesome.
Good job.
I'm so proud of you. You've done great things.
And we have another one that celebration, the student couldn't make it tonight, so we're gonna move it into our October meeting.
Okay, congratulations.
Yes, amazing.
Thank you.
Well done.
Congratulations. So, second one up there, or
What was that, Gigi?
did we have another student?
Yeah, we're gonna move it to October, student couldn't attend tonight.
Okay,
And then we'll get
All right.
into some of the other student recognition as well.
okay. So we have community announcements. Return of the Salmon Celebration is the 28th from 10 to 4. Sky Valley Farm Festival, October the 5th from 10 to 4. And our dam evacuation drill is, what day is that again?
October 15th,
15th, okay, at 9:30.
9:30, we'll make a call, weather depending, at 8:30, by 8:30. 8
Okay.
o'clock, I'll shoot for 8 o'clock.
Okay. Board comments. Does anyone have any comments for their respective groups? WIA, transportation, CFAC, grants, IMC, legislative reps, anything? Anybody have any comments?
No comments. No.
No, this time.
General Assembly was a fun, exciting, entire day. But it was finished in one day, so that's good.
So what did you sign everybody up for?
I'm not telling you.
Okay. Fair.
It'll be a surprise. All right, we have Dr. Paul Douglas. I can't see anyone, so I'm assuming that these people are here.
Yeah, good evening, directors. So it's
Hello.
hard to present right after the success story, so that's why we're here in education. So it's very glad to be part of that tonight to see that. So a couple just updates for you. I wanted to share that when I first started here 5 years ago, we had 320 special needs students. We now have 375 of the last week. So along with growth of our general ed students, those with special needs have also grown significantly. Our classrooms right now, those that are severe and moderate to severe disabilities, have grown dramatically along with the needs. I would say of my 30-year career, this is some of the highest needs students I've seen. So we're seeing a lot of growth and a lot of need. So that is high on our list to address that this year, and I'm trying to address that. The House bill that I have in front of, or Senate bill that I have in front of you, 5883, it probably has more questions than answers for you, but this was passed the last legislative session and signed into law on June 6th. So this was the first school year to implement it. Basically, this law comes from a Ninth Circuit Court decision, and we're all following this, the Timothy O case. And essentially that had to do with students with disabilities, particularly those with autism and diagnosed autism disorder, was presented to the school district. The school district did not immediately evaluate that student for special education, which this law changes. So if we know that a student has a medical diagnosed disability under the Americans with Disabilities Act, we need to look at them for evaluation, so there's no delay on interventions and supports for the students. So that's the brief summary. The implications for that in this particular law also is the burden of proof. So on due process hearings, as well as going into the higher courts. So there's due process, then you go to district, and then you move from district. It can go up to the Ninth Circuit Court from there, goes up to Superior Court and so on. So from this situation, the burden of proof is now where the parent comes in and can ask the district, show me that you are in fact implementing the IEP as it written. What's the data that you're using to show that? The other part of that is is the IEP being implemented in the general ed classroom? In prior years, it had been, yes, we're implementing it, and the experts in terms of our professionals that are delivering the information are able to describe how it was delivered. Now it goes a step further to say you must have quantitative data to show in fact that this student his implementation is happening, and what's the growth data to show that it is. So for students with special needs that are on an IEP, they have progress reports. They're on the quarter basis, just like report cards are, but we need to see progress in that. And one of the things I talk to my staff about in particular is a student should not reach the quarter, and you should not be saying this student is not meeting progress on their goals. That's unacceptable. Students need to make progress. If in 6 weeks they're not making progress, we need to reconvene the IEP team and discuss how do we adjust things so the student does in fact make progress. So these are things that are already occurring here. One of the other implementations, let's skip that then. So one of the factors for general ed is that then applies to the general ed classroom as well. So if students with special needs are in the general ed classroom, the general ed teacher needs to say, yes, in fact, I'm implementing the IEP, and we also need to see that growth data as well. And that's a change for some teachers. Some teachers have been doing that all along, but now is, in fact, you have to show that. So reading, writing, and math are the eligibility areas, the academic eligibility areas, so they must be able to show that there's growth occurring in there. They also must be able to show that the accommodations and modifications are, in fact, occurring. So you no longer can say, well, I know that the student has them, but I don't know what they are. That's not acceptable under the new change here. And you must be able to show that, yes, in fact, you did implement. So some changes that way. It does change the way documentation is kept. And that's a significant change. But ultimately, doing what's best for kids, making sure their needs are being met, is a result of the law. So that's the brief summary. Any questions on?
Are you having any issues or with implementation, or has it been pretty smooth so far?
I think I've done presentations to a couple staff, going out to their buildings and going over. I think the challenge is, it's not resistance in doing it, it's how do I do it and manage things that are going on in my classroom on the general ed side. So some of the schools have come up with some ways to do it in terms of identify these are the students that have accommodations and modifications and what those are. Even to the point where if a substitute came in, they would know that this student needs the same modifications, accommodations. Okay. Nice. But that is, that's an extra step. But like I said, teachers want to do the best for kids, and they're doing that.
Isaac, do you have any questions?
I do not.
Mike?
Nope, just answered. Hasn't asked about challenges.
Michael?
Nope, I'm satisfied.
Marianne?
Hi, Dr. Paul. This is a general question and it doesn't need to be specific. Do you know approximately how many kids we serve in special services this school year?
About 375 as of last week.
Wow. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, you bet. And just like Aubrey and Heather said, you are welcome to come out, and I would be very happy to take you to any of the classes that you would like to see. Just let me know.
I would love that. I'll follow up with you.
Yeah, absolutely, anytime. Teachers
Thank
would
you.
love to see that, and so would the kids. So.
Thank you so much. We appreciate it.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, next we have monthly financial report. Dan Ballard.
Evening, directors.
Hello.
Hello. Well, approximately 1 year ago, I stood in front of you with news not as nearly as encouraging as it is this evening, because we were talking about an enrollment that came in significantly under budget, and now we're happy to report that the pendulum has swung the other direction. So the first page of my report gets you the September counts. As you recall, we budgeted very conservatively. We budgeted for the annual average through about April of last year. We did add one section of transitional kindergarten, two, to get a total of 3, which came to our total traditional enrollment projection of 1967.02. However, for September, we came in at 2,000, just over 2,030 in traditional. So that put us at a plus 63.28. ALE, we are below ALE. We budgeted just about 65, 64.6, and we came in just about at 55, so we're approximately 10 below. So when you average the above and the below, in total, all areas, all formats of instruction, we are plus about 54 students, 53.66. So.
And the ALE will already show you in the October count that it's already filled in.
Okay. So yeah,
It's so
October.
much better than last ones, or last year's.
Yes, much better to present this type of news. October, as Dan just kind of touched on, is really the number we kind of look at a little bit more. Certainly September is encouraging, but October we would look at some additional gains possibly, and then maybe some drops also too. So I think October is really the number that I kind of look at as the more solid number for enrollment. Traditional enrollment, just some graphic representations. Again, the 2030, just like talked about. So again, we're continuing to tick upward. We had 2 years that were fairly flat, but now we're ticking upward again at a fairly robust rate.
Just a quick comment. I'm sure everybody heard it, but for the sake of the audience, this school here has 700 kids in it now.
As far as enrollment for kindergarten, last year, we had a pretty small enrollment number at kindergarten. So you can see our kindergarten numbers in aggregate is at 160, was 147.8 a year ago. So it is up slightly, but predominantly that growth is here at this building, not at Gold Bar. Gold Bar has essentially kind of continued to be fairly consistent with what it was a year ago, which is down versus what we traditionally have seen. So that might be kind of the quote-unquote new normal out of Gold Bar, but this building continues to see pretty robust growth. Continuing on, again, just some graphic representations. The 2030, as we talked about before, in reference to what the budgeted line number is, the green line with the triangles, so we're significantly above for the first count month. ALE, the second graph going the other direction, again, as we had talked about, as of September, the September count is below, but we anticipate that will change somewhat when we do the October count coming up here in just a couple of weeks. District-wide enrollment for head count. This is one I added a couple of months ago, 3-4 months ago, per the request of the board. Again, head count, physical bodies versus FTE, full-time equivalency. At the elementary level, they tend to be very, very close. FTE and head count are almost spot on. Where you start to see the discrepancies a little bit at the middle school, but mostly at the high school, especially in 11th and 12th grade, is where you start to see FTE and head count start to diverge fairly significantly. So this is just overall head count. You can see as it goes back to 10-11 was the data that I had readily available to me. So you can see it went down, but it has been on a slow uptick. And then I broke it down even further by building, and I will continue to build upon this every month and bring this forward. So it's interesting when you look at that by buildings, the red line is SES, and you can see that SES from the period has grown dramatically. From 10-11 when it was just above 500 to, like Dan talked about, this juncture, but just about 700. So it's grown substantially. The purple line is the high school. High school has bounced around, but it is essentially actually still a little bit below where it was back in 10-11 as far as the overall head count is concerned. The green line is the middle school, essentially pretty flat, just slightly down from where it was 10 years ago. And Gold Bar, again, relatively flat, pretty comparable to where it was 10 years ago. So the head count growth is primarily this building, is where the head count growth has come. But those kids, as they matriculate to the system and become middle schoolers, obviously they will start to see those graphs change at the middle school and then subsequently at the high school level. Taxes, again, just the rolls for the taxes. I know you have a lot on your agenda, so I won't spend too much time going over that. As far as the budget status reports, you can see that those are stamped as revised. August is our last month of the fiscal year. And so we do our year-end close. Year-end close is due on or before the 26th of October, I believe, is when I have to have the final, what's called the F-196 completed. So when we do August, we have an initial, a revised, and a final. We have the initial already. The revised is kind of that intermediate step. And then there'll be year-end adjusting entries that will then create the final, okay? But as of the revised report right now, fund balance in general fund, $1,794,721. The revised for capital projects fund, $1,872,733. The revised report for debt service fund, $127,418. For ASB, $200,734, and for, Fund 90 Transportation Vehicle Fund, $258,704. We'll be making additional numbers, so basically at this time of the year, you will see continuing to make adjustments to August year end, but also New Year. So we're running 2 fiscal years essentially side by side right now. We'll be finishing up the 23-24 year while we're continuing to produce new statements for 24-25. The exceptions reports have broke them out. The first one, I believe, is for all objects, all areas. Overall, we ended up 0.2% as of right now below budget. Okay, so that's pretty close. We were within $93,000 of budget as far as our ending numbers. If you break that down a bit further, salaries and benefits, your objects 2s through 4s, we were 1.9% below, or just close to $600,000 below as far as salaries and benefits are concerned. But on the flip side, material supplies and operating costs were significantly over, 7.5% above. This can be attributed to obviously just general inflationary pressures, cost of goods, age of facilities, cost of energy and fuel, things such as that were heavy contributors to that. So I did do some breakouts as far as program. For those, the primary ones, the large ones in the red, I did do some breakouts down at the bottom there to give some further explanation. General fund balance history, again, as of right now, the revised number just below 1.8 million. That will continue to, I don't anticipate it changing a lot, but we will continue to refine that number as we work from the revised state to a final state. And then that 1.794 million would be about 4.5% as far as the minimum fund balance is concerned.
Which is so much nicer than we thought.
Yes, numbers continue to improve throughout the year because we really did a good job as far as controlling some expenditures. We really did. Our average AP run was significantly less in 23-24 than it was in 22-23. So when I had brought forth numbers about 6 months ago, I was looking at projecting based on what was the prior 12 months, which usually is your best data that you have to work with. But to everyone's credit, we were able to make significant inroads and really control spending over that period of time to where our average AP run was significantly less. And that manifested itself into some significant savings, and it brought forth to a fund balance that's much better than I had thought 6 months ago.
And so that number equates 4.5%, which is 0.5% above the board minimum. And that doesn't include the additional enrollment that won't be realized until after in January.
Excellent job.
Much better. Does anyone have any questions? Isaac?
No.
Mike?
No, great job, thank you.
Michael?
Very happy. Good.
Mary Ann said no, and I have none. Just that 700 kids is crazy.
Yeah.
It's almost like we need more buildings.
And the news is certainly good. It just provides different challenges. Last year it was a different. This is a different set of challenges than the numbers that I gave you last year. But these are the ones I would rather deal with. So,
Yes.
thank you.
All right,
Thanks,
you.
Dan.
Appreciate it.
Yeah.
All right, we are on to business. Approval of the NWLA agreement. Did anyone have any questions or comments about this pretty standardized agreement that they sent over? And I can't see everybody. Isaac, Michael, Mike, questions?
No.
No questions.
Mary Ann? Okay, can I get a motion to approve the NWLA agreement?
I
Motion.
make a motion to approve the NWLA agreement for the superintendent search.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And now Mary Ann and I both aye, if you couldn't hear that, Kayla. All right. Motion passes. Discussion of the timeline. Kayla, can you put that up? Not the timeline, but the focus group. So the focus group information that we discussed, I just put it together. If you guys take a quick look at it and see, I didn't put times and locations just because that's gonna be more for them and Kayla and Dan to work out. But as far as the groups go, I think I got everything that we had discussed. And this isn't like an action item, so I mean, if there's anything you wanna change or add or whatever, I'll probably have a conversation with Wayne tomorrow. And if anyone wants to get on that with me, you guys let me know. But does anyone see anything that's been left out or we need to add? I did ask them about doing the two community groups, like we talked about, one in Gold Bar and then one in Sultan at the same time, and that's fine. And then separating the high school and the middle school, and that was fine also. I think those are the two main ones that we had questions on.
They're confident that they can get all this done in one day, huh?
Yes, they
Wow.
do this. This is what they do.
I only have one thing I want changed on there. Can you spell
that
my
would
name
be-
right? Wow.
I didn't
Vanity,
catch
huh?
that, sorry about that.
Vanity.
It's asking way too much, Isaac.
I know.
What was it? I can't hear you.
Oh, I said he was asking way too much.
Oh, yeah.
We updated the spelling, that was me.
Thank you.
All right, let's move on. Charlie Weaver, are you there?
I am.
The audience, so, approval of small bus purchase.
And this
You're up.
this is another, just ties into the growth challenge, so explain a
So,
little bit about
yeah,
what
as
you're
Dr.
doing.
Douglas described, we have a higher number of special needs students. And in that group, we also have higher needs than we've had in the past as well. And so with that, we have specialty schools and whatnot. And we have students that have alternate schedules, so they don't go the whole day. And so with all of that and the higher number of students, we're out of buses.
Not just special ed students, students in general.
Students in general, but special ed, particularly why we're asking for a small bus, we have no spare buses right now for special needs. We just added a route started today, having 12 or 15 special need kids on a bus is challenging. We also started having helpers on the bus. Dr. Douglas and I got together and we have some paras that volunteered, and we have one that rides in the mornings with a few students and one rides in the afternoons. So, like I said, the challenges are grown and the population's grown, and so we're out of where we are for buses. As far as the bus replacement schedule, we are 3 buses behind anyway, and through my time here, that rather than a few $1,000s here and there, the district really hasn't had to purchase a bus with general fund or capital dollars. We've used our depreciation monies to do that, and we're just to a point where we need a boost.
So what's the actual cost? What are we looking at? Is it the 123?
So I sent Kayla the numbers to send to you. It is
Very confusing to me.
scroll up, back up to it's the A34G, and it'll be the Shetke Northwest. So the 123,789, and our district, we have 2-way radios, which is a couple thousand. We have cameras, which is about 4,000, and we have on-spot chains. They're drop-down chains, and that's about 4,000. So we're about 134 plus tax.
Where does this money come from?
Capital.
No.
The money ferry?
So, no, it's in the general fund.
Is it general?
And
Okay.
so if you look under, there's some verbiage that was added. It's an unbudgeted expenditure in the transportation vehicle fund, so you have to transfer it from the general fund to the transportation vehicle fund. And it's gotta happen through a resolution, and it's explained kind of in there, right, the way it works right there. And part of that is, the budget came out better than it was forecasted, and you have additional students. Our ridership will likely be up, so there's a chance that we will generate greater revenue than we budgeted. Not a guarantee, but a chance. And one of the things that has been mentioned as we've gone on, Charlie and Dan have done a good job of taking the money that's generated from depreciation, ordering a bus or two, but it was always stated that one of the things that could blow this up is if we have rapid growth. And I wouldn't say this is terribly rapid, but we've had growth over time just by the fact that we've got 700 kids here. And so some of the neighborhoods up by where I live, you might have sent 2 buses, now there's 4. 5, you know, and it's a challenge. And so you have to adjust. And part of the reason why I want to speak about this, you don't hear anything about it, because they've managed it well. Depreciation money has gone into the transportation vehicle account. We're already in the process of ordering another bus. We don't have any more, because we've bought a bus that'll be here in February, a big one. We need a bus as soon as we can, because they've got drivers coming in, parking a bus, another driver getting in the bus and taking a different group of kids somewhere. I don't know how long that can last. And so it's not ideal, but it is what you do to deal with the challenges you face when you have a growing community.
Yeah, and there's not much that could, it doesn't take much to take a bus out of service either. So going down the road and you catch a rock in the windshield, if the spider is bigger than a quarter, windshield's got to be replaced. So it takes time to do that. So simple things like that take a bus out of service and really throw a wrench in the system.
Board questions, Michael?
No, not offhand.
Mike?
How quickly can we get the bus in?
I think the Shetke one I can have, well, it's not so much getting it, it's getting the on-spot chains put on it, the radios, so December. So we have to hold our breath for 2 months.
Once you guys are done with your questions, Dan, explain the mechanics of the extension and all that once the questions are asked.
Thank you, Charlie.
Isaac, questions?
No, I'm good.
Marianne?
Yes, I have a question. Based on what Dr. Paul said about 375 special needs kids, would it be prudent for us to buy a minibus with a lift? That's my question.
With a what?
With a lift.
Oh, with a lift. We only have one student that requires a lift. He's a middle school student. His parents transport him in the mornings, we transport him in the afternoons. Yes, we have 3 right now. And they're used for other purposes as well.
3 buses with lifts?
Correct.
Okay.
One of them is a short, big style bus, and we have 2 of the smaller buses.
Since we're financially stable right now, I'd like to see us spend a little bit more and get a lift if we could swing it. I think you did a fantastic job on the level of detail on the document provided, so thank you so much.
The lift one is another 3 months down the road.
So it's a longer wait time, we'd be waiting after for March to get one with a lift. If we have 3 buses with a lift, we have 1 student that needs, it seems like we are in surplus. Why spend the extra money on something? I agree. Without a need.
Are you aware that there's a student at Gold Bar that is in a wheelchair?
Yes.
That right now, just because we're only transporting 1 kid, that doesn't mean down the road.
Agreed.
And how many years of service do we normally have a bus for?
All of our wheelchair buses are depreciated out. And in our schedule, the next purchasing cycle, which will be for the next school year, is when we purchase the next wheelchair bus.
That seems like it's a good compromise, that the next one we're gonna purchase off the depreciation would be one with a lift, since we have 3 with a lift now and we only have 1 student that needs to be transported with it. I think that sounds like a good, are you okay with that, Marianne?
To not get a lift right now, but the next one that we do on the depreciation schedule get a lift?
Correct.
Yeah, I'm totally fine with that. I was just saying, since we're financially stable right now, if we had the money, I'd rather put it into something useful.
Our depreciation dollars is gonna grow as well, because we got a $200,000 grant for an electric bus, And so we only had to pay $130,000 for the bus. That's been ordered. And so, but we get the depreciation value of the 300 plus. So that will boost our depreciation value.
Dan Ballard, do you wanna talk real quick about the money, the transfer?
Yeah, so there's capacity that's in the budget right now, because as I said in my presentations, we put in capacity for that large grant for 10 electric buses and the corresponding revenue. Doesn't mean we have to do that. So there's enough capacity in there, because it sounds like that's not gonna be an option.
Right.
Moving forward with that 10 bus grant is probably not gonna be an option. So there's enough capacity in there. The only thing we'd have to do, so we could use that existing capacity, but there would need to be a transfer resolution at some point in time to move the cash from general fund to transportation vehicle fund. Not right now, because you have enough money sitting in the account with your annual depreciation at $258,000 or whatever it is. He's got enough money right now, but when it comes time for that grant, the portion of the grant funded bus that's the district's responsibility is when they would need that transfer, because he won't have sufficient cash because of this unforeseen purchase.
So today we just need to approve the purchase, and then eventually we will approve the transfer, correct?
Yes, a resolution transfer at some future date, yes.
Okay. If no one else has any questions, do we have a motion to approve the small bus purchase for approximately $134,000?
Motion to approve the small bus purchase.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? No. All right, it passes. Go get a bus, Charlie.
Thank you.
Gotta get tables. You gotta get tables too.
Are you staying for tables?
I am.
Okay, so go for tables.
So if you visited the middle school commons during lunches, middle school went to a 3 lunch schedule to reduce the amount of bodies in that space. Currently they use round tables with loose chairs, and because of that, there's a lot of wasted space between the tables. And so in order to make a safer transition for kids getting their food, sitting down, and then it's not recess, but they go out and have some free time. But to make that transition, and for the student management of during that process, we were recommending putting linear type style tables that have integrated stools. And in doing that, in the diagram I showed where we would gain the space would be more used for the students, and it'd be easier to watch over them and keep it safe.
So this is also part of the equipment replacement list
They are.
that, we're behind on, but it is on there, and you can take these round tables and the chairs, because we're all out of extra chairs in the district too, and you just repurpose them.
Correct. Perfect.
And then my only issue was I didn't think we needed the logo on the tables.
Yeah.
Cause that's like $19,000 just about to put logos on the table.
Yeah, the SBI, they said that most districts don't do every table anyway. If they do it, they do every other. I think that I planned on having half of the tables with the dark blue seats and the other half with the light blue seats. I think that gives us the school colors and some representation, and I think that that's well enough.
Yeah, cause I think too, having not just the cost for the logo, if we wanted to utilize them somewhere else at the high school, it'd be nice to not have a logo on there, so. All right, so what's the total cost without the logo? I see the
I broke that
110, but
down.
it might have been updated on here.
It's the 43,360 plus the shipping.
That brings it to 47.
Okay.
And plus tax.
Questions, does anyone have questions? In-person questions?
This will be paid for out of capital projects, proceeds from Department of Natural Resource timber harvest.
Mary Ann, did you have any questions? And no one there has questions?
Nope.
All right, Can we get a motion to approve SMS lunch table replacements?
Motion to approve SMS lunch table replacements.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? All right, motion passes. So by a bus, can you put the lunch tables on the bus?
Save that delivery fee.
Thank you, Director.
Give us delivery. Thank you,
Charlie.
Charlie. Approval of tennis court revision.
Motion
Hello.
Hey.
Hello.
John?
So I'm here for, I teach the alternative high school PE classes. And the tennis courts that we have at the high school actually work really well for a lot of the stuff that we do. But they are only marked for tennis. And in my lifetime fitness class, I'd like to be able to use them for things like pickleball and potentially badminton as well. But there's no lines painted at the moment for that. And especially with pickleball being one of the fastest growing sports in the country, it'd be nice to have those lines on there. It's gonna cost about $50 to do, and so I'm here to ask that we could get that done.
Do we have $50?
I make a motion to approve the request for painting lines on the high school court, and I am okay if it goes up to $150.
Okay, any questions first? Isaac,
I have none.
you're paying, right?
I'll cut a check for it.
Mike, any questions?
Only if you do it in a Husky shirt.
Okay, I'm leaving.
No other questions? No.
Michael, questions?
No questions.
Okay, so we have a motion to approve the tennis court revisions. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? All right, you got your lines.
Thank you. Have a good night, everybody.
See you, John.
Thank
John,
you.
I'll get with you and we'll figure it
I
out.
had to
Yeah.
wait that one.
Thank you.
Sorry you had to wait an
Yeah,
hour and a
that's
half
good.
for that, but.
It's all right.
All right, discussion of school safety. Dan, is that you?
Yeah, I've got the good fortune of having Charlie here, so he'll join me in this. Several years ago, just kind of bring you up to speed, we started a district-wide committee and actually had a person come in and work with us to develop appropriate response plans to, what was kind of the unimaginable, unthinkable, school shootings and different things. And so we did a lot of different things around that and have developed pretty comprehensive plans. And if you fast forward up to last year, we developed actually reunification plans. Exercising or executing those drills is kind of the next step in the process. We used to use a group called Alice to do drills around these things, and we would actually do a lockdown, a barricade in place. One of the things we discovered from that is the challenge, the stress that we were causing kids in that whole process. And so we've kind of matriculated to a place called the I Love You Guys Foundation. It's out of Colorado. They helped us with our reunification plans. And so Charlie is in the process of meeting with each of the school safety teams, and I've directed them to make sure that a drill is done that plans for either a unwanted intruder or a school shooter. These are challenging drills. I mean, how do you do that in the right way with kids that are 6 years old, 7 years old? How do you have the conversation with them? I can remember being in the gymnasium of this school when we were first doing these things and putting the plans together and looking out at the teachers, and I could just see the stress on their face. I signed up to teach, not try to stop somebody with a gun. And so it's very difficult to do, but nevertheless, it's a reality and we have to do them. So we're in the process of planning those things. If you can speak a little bit, Charlie, and kind of expand on it.
Yeah, so in that, it basically you have a guidance on all the different people and what they do, and then so we work with the schools on assigning appropriate people to those positions. And we have had a tabletop at the middle school. That's only the furthest that we've gotten, and it brings out challenges. Being in a small town, the three largest buildings in the town are our schools, so evacuating to another school may not be an option. We have some churches that are large enough to house everybody, but it's super cramped. And the process is in doing that. And because we're a small district, there are many people in the district that have to wear multiple hats during the process. The district office staff is key in all of the different schools' evacuation and reunification plans. And all of those people hold the same position for all the schools. So the district office is busy, and so keeping those people to a specific job makes it easier.
So let me break it down a little farther, hopefully, because what you're talking about, Charlie, is the reunification plan.
part of it.
So we budgeted some money last year and built some totes on wheels
Yeah.
that have all of the signage,
EOP stuff.
all of the stuff you need if you had to go to another site. Let's say that, something happened in this school and if you had to shut it down, whether it was a chemical spill or, the unthinkable, and we had to go to, one of the local churches, we could take these and set up the place where you come, get it ready.
And we take all those materials with us for the Callenbach.
So that's a drill, and we're working with ESD to kind of, how do you do such a drill? Because it's really complicated. The other part, though, I think the simpler, more soon, is having conversations with students about what to do in the event that something like this takes place. It is doing a school drill on the campus of what do you do. If somebody just showed up all of a sudden and it was a really a terrible situation, that's the more, I think, specific, immediate drill that we need to conduct. And we were doing some pretty, I don't know if aggressive is the right word, as real as we could, kind of drills where, it was, you had a shooter on campus. And there were school districts that were actually using people dressed up like somebody, and it's against the law now to do that, so.
Probably wise.
Yeah. What's that?
Probably wise to not do that.
Yeah, so there's a careful balance between making sure that we have things in place to be aware, that talking with kids about what to do in the event that we have a challenge, and doing a drill on a school ground that doesn't cause trauma, the best that we can. And so I will get you dates of that, but Charlie and our SRO work with each of the schools, because we used to only do, several years ago, just fire drills. And now it's, now there's probably, of the 9 required drills, we do probably 5 or 6 different ones.
Correct.
October 15th is a full district evacuation drill, with the exception of Gold Bar for the flood. And so I think that in my weekend update, I sent you the packet that gives instructions on how that all works. And so we do that drill, and we meet after it, update it based on any changes need to take place, and then we do a meeting the following year, about a month before it, which we've already had. And this year I'm bringing I work with the POD's got a model of the dam, and so we'll have that on hand at the high school to help educate the high school students, why are we even doing this? Because they, I don't know, it was a few years ago, they were horsing around a little bit, and we wanted to bring that horsing around to a close. And so we said, well, guys, this is why we're doing this. There's a reason behind this. It isn't just because we don't have anything better to do. So this is a complex topic, and I guess I would ask what the board would like to see. Or what are you curious about? We can send you the EOP plans. We can have you on hand when we do the evacuation drill. We can have you on hand if you want to be when we do a school level drill to just see what it looks like. You can listen to conversation with kids if you want.
For me, on a personal level, just as a mom, I want all of our kids, all of our students to know, if something happens, what do they do? To me, that's the most important thing, is if there's a fire, what do you do? If someone comes into the school, what do you do? And that's what I think that we really need to work on, is they need to know what to do in whatever emergency there is. So that would be mine. anybody have
So that, to
anything
be
else to
part of
add?
that, can you, if I were to choose to be there on October 15th, say here, we could be part of that and see how it goes?
Absolutely.
Well, I'll
And
sign
so,
up for that.
so what'll happen is because it's a drill,
Yeah.
every year, somebody has to be seen by first aid during the drill.
Okay.
Either for asthma or twisting an ankle, or we've had hit heads when they fall.
Or when they're up at the top, just because it's so many people, they
It's-
bump and trip over the curb. and
You can certainly do that, because
Little
the way
things.
it'll start is it'll be at 9:30, a rave notice will come out, that earthquake or something, you have to drop, cover, and hold. They'll account for all the kids on the campus, and we try to set it up, because it is a drill, for them to get to the bottom of Love's Hill staggered, so you don't have a big bottleneck.
The rave is our notification system.
Yeah,
Okay,
I guess yeah, it's,
awesome.
rave is like I've got a button on here that I can push if,
For active shooter, for
Active shooter,
if it's a
whatever.
fire, if it's medical, and all of our campuses use it for all those things.
it's panic button.
Snowpack.
And so if I slide it right here, then I can push that button, and we're gonna have everybody that's got a gun and a uniform is gonna be here
Be here.
quick.
That's awesome.
How do we get that out?
Hey,
Fire
so how would do I just tell you, Dan, or?
Yeah, we can tell, and I'll just email Aubrey,
All right,
or I'll
do that.
email them.
Would you like to be part of it for the campus, or do you wanna be part of the bigger scene?
I'll do it for this campus.
Okay.
And then if anybody else wants to do it too, just make sure that if there's gonna be more than 3 of us at a certain spot, that we let Kayla know so she can advertise it, but yeah, if you guys wanna go, just let them know.
I already claimed here, so you guys
Get dibs.
dibs.
I would love to participate in the dam evacuation drill.
Yeah, if anybody wants to participate, just let Charlie and Dan know, and that'll be great. Mike
Thanks.
or Michael, anything else?
No, ma'am.
No,
All right, thanks for going over that. I know it's not like a fun subject. Growing up, we did tornado drills because I grew up in Kansas, but these are the kind of drills that, you know, none of them are fun, I guess, but
Yeah.
stuff we really wish we didn't have to do.
You're not in Kansas anymore.
No, no, even with my
we
red
did
shoes on.
volcano drills right before Mount.
All right,
St.
thank you, appreciate it.
Really?
You're
You
welcome.
also,
Worthwhile?
Thanks,
but I'm
Charlie.
flying
That
out to
help?
Kansas on Friday myself, so,
So we all had our own masks.
All right, so we have discussion of student discipline policy changes.
I won't get too deep into this, other than to let you know that, I think I have sent a couple of different updates in my weekend updates that have referred to this. Several years ago, the discipline was really tightened down to where kids couldn't be removed from classes, and different things. About 2 weeks before school started, we got notification that OSPI was gonna make some changes to the rules. And so what you see reflected here are policy and procedures that have already been updated by a law firm in Spokane. And the first reading of this will not be until the October business meeting, so you can go through it and do that. Remember, these aren't marked up, so it's harder to tell what's happened and what is being removed, but these are done in a way that is for sure aligned with the law and the way it works. And so we'll talk internally. I've got an administrative meeting on Thursday, and this will be one of the things we talk about, the whole, reading of this and how it all works. So this will probably go smoothly, just because you won't be necessarily aware of all the changes, but if you do have them, or if you do have questions about what is being changed, I can certainly research that and get back to you. But a lot of it just has to do with, we couldn't, what was the term that was used, Paul? You couldn't remove kids from instruction, or you had to do several different interventions before you could do that.
Right, you have to have several interventions before you suspended a student, and if you were removed a student from class, it had to be a de minimis amount of time.
Yeah, so.
5 minutes or less is what they said.
And part of that came from looking at graduation rates in some communities where, especially kids of color, that would get expelled or put on emergency expulsion, they wouldn't come back, and they couldn't track them down. And so it was really a matter of trying to put some stops and some checks and balances in the system so that the kids most at risk didn't just have another reason to not show up because nothing about school works for them, you know?
All right, so first read of these will be on 10/28 then?
Yep.
Okay. All right, let's move to first read of policy procedure and MOU for 6212.
Evening, directors. So I was charged with making changes, updating existing policy, and in the case of 6212P, developing a procedure that did not exist with the district. So kind of starting from scratch. Anyway, so I'm open to answering questions or however you want to conduct this discussion.
I had one question, just real quick. Do districts ever use actual credit cards instead of P cards?
We refer to them as P cards or purchasing cards. I mean, those terms can kind of be used interchangeably. Credit cards, purchasing cards. You know, the policy, I think, it still says credit cards on law.
Normal.
So it is a credit card.
It is a
or
credit
are
card,
they
yes.
different? Can
You're
you explain the difference?
Yeah, you're extended a line of credit, an aggregate line of credit that you were used just like you would for with a personal credit card, but they call it more of a P card or procurement card is more the term, but charge card, procurement card, they can be used interchangeably. And we use that, and then obviously it's paid off in full each month, and then it's used and paid off again and so forth, so.
My questions were, who will be the custodians? This is referring to the procedure?
Right. I think that's a good point, is that I did not, I worked with, I want to recognize also to Janie Miller, who's been our accounts payable specialist for decades. She and I worked together on developing this. We reached out first of all to some neighboring districts to try to get some verbiage. The kind of the skeleton of this was basically from Riverview School Districts, is who we borrowed this from, and then we changed and modified it, adapted it. To answer your question, Gigi, I didn't put, we certainly could put positions in there. What I wanted to do is develop a procedure that would not become obsolete quickly by identifying specific names of people, because if people were to leave the district, then it becomes obsolete. But I think positions is a good idea. For card custodians, which would be under A2, the way that a district works here, and it's different in Riverview. In Riverview, they actually issue cards to specific positions and or individuals, and they retain those cards. So they keep them physically in their wallet or their pocketbook or their purse or whatever, and use them as needed for appropriate expenditures. Our district is not that way. The cards are not held and retained over extended periods of time. They are checked out as needed, used, and returned back to the custodian. So the card custodian, Janie Miller, is our card custodian for the district office. And then the building admin secretary is the custodian, or is the custodians at the building level. So essentially we have 5, one at each of the 4 buildings, and then Janie at the district office. So those are our 5 custodians, and I can certainly add that.
Okay, and then the other question I had was, so they need to get something with the card, so they sign the MOU, turn it in, get the card. Are we asking them to sign an MOU every single time they need to use the card?
No.
Or is that just a one-time thing?
It's an annual. It's an annual once per year requirement that we just do that covers blanket for that entire year, and then they renew it the following year.
So what procedure would it be if they want to purchase something? We have on here, submit a request. Can that be done online? Does that have to be done on paper? How do we make it easy for people?
It did. I guess we didn't go into that level. Typically, it's email is fine. Just as far as the intended use. Make the custodian, whichever is the appropriate custodian, aware that you would like to use the card or need the card, and then they would, as far as the amount requested. So yeah, I could put some verbiage in there as far as the mechanics of that.
So when someone asks the card custodian, so let's say I'm at the high school and I ask, if it's like Serena, I need to buy, $100 worth of paper. Is she going to know how much money she has for each line item in her budget?
Yes.
that gonna be, okay, so they're not gonna need to contact the finance department whatsoever on this, correct?
No. Now, I will say, it's just in full transparency, with purchasing cards, P cards, there is always that loop that, just like in anything else, because a purchase is made, the statement comes after the fact. There is nothing, the way that this is set up, that would stop a P card purchase from happening if there were not budget capacity in that account line. It's basically, would be an honor system. The way that it works right now is that the buildings send me a request. What I do is I go in and look at the account for them to determine if they do or do not have capacity. If they don't, I tell them, you don't have capacity in this line, you need to do a budget transfer. I'm not telling them no, I'm just giving them a heads up. This process, that I would be taken out of that process completely. The card custodian and the building would need to go and do that check, make that transfer, and then initiate the purchase. So it would be on them to be managing that process. I would not be involved in that process.
So,
And I think personally, for me, I trust these guys with my kid, so I think I can trust them to look up and see if they have enough money in the account to spend. Does everybody agree with that? I think some of the discussions we've had that,
To allow the principals to just have free, or have their budget and work with it?
yes.
I mean, they should be able to.
One of the questions that came up from our discussion, I don't know if Mike, you wanna go over that, or do you want me to, the receipts and things like that?
I was just, the language is very harsh as far as on the MOU. And I know that you provided other examples of other districts that do that. Still doesn't change my mind that it's a little harsh when we talk about garnishing wages. In the actual procurement policy, you do call out already that there would be, let's see. There would be consequences if it's misused or.
I think it just references the
appropriately.
memorandum of understanding, I think is what it references.
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
So, just, it's that last paragraph, you know, just really, and again,
The last
might
bullet,
be-
the last bullet point.
yeah,
is where it's
just
on.
really kind of rubs me the wrong way. We talk about we're gonna garnish people's wages and, you know, don't do
And
this.
it's also
don't
in
do
the
that.
policy 6212 where it says, charges not supported with original receipts, will become the responsibility of the staff member. So that was also original receipts, can it be a photocopy, like how
Yeah,
nitpicky do we have to be with this?
part of it is, I mean, I know I've lost receipts and it's taken me a little bit to go back and try and find it. Also, I don't know if it applies to public spending or not, but I know in the government world, when I work with them, anything over a certain dollar amount, you didn't have to necessarily provide receipts. I think it was $50 at that time, that receipts were not mandatory for any purchases under $50. I don't know if that is true in public schools, but I know like in government and military, when I was working with them, that was a policy.
Okay.
I don't know if that is a policy here or not. But just, we're working with people, and I just want to make sure that we are respecting them appropriately.
Yeah.
So-
I will say that, yes, the language, with the first, when I first sent them to you, I had reached out, and I felt Snohomish's was the most comprehensive. Theirs had been reviewed in 2019, so it was the most current of the ones that I found. Ours was 20 years old, theirs was only 5 years old. So we used that as a starting point, and then we went through, Janie and I again sat down, and we kind of wordsmithed it a little bit. However, we did not change that last paragraph. What I will say is that Snohomish did insert in theirs, different than Monroe and Riverview, the term payroll deduction. They did insert that in there. Both Monroe and Riverview do not have that. The verbiage other than that is essentially identical, but Snohomish, for whatever reason, and I didn't purposely pick that up, I just, once I saw the other ones, Snohomish did add this little bit in there. For their district, I guess they felt that that was necessary.
Yeah, and again, it's just me, if everybody else is okay with it, I'm fine, I just find the language a little harsh.
So I've got a
For a
question,
professional.
Dan, about the being able to spend on a credit card if you don't have any money in your budget. Is that because we only have a few cards and they're tied to a different code? Is that the way, so meaning if everybody had, if there was a card for every building budget, it could be set to not overspend that budget, couldn't it?
It could. The way that the cards are set up, and it was a process that I inherited from over 12 years ago, is we have an aggregate credit line for the entire district. So all of these cards are using into that credit line. You can be issued additional cards, but there is not a separate credit line for an additional card. It's just an additional card.
You
It's
can't
still,
tie a credit line to a particular card?
you could, but it's not currently set up that way. We would need to reset things and set the system up differently. It's just set up as an aggregate credit line.
Let me just jump in there, because I want to just say, how you inherited it might not be the best way for us to do it. So we need to look at whatever is the best for us now, and it may be something a little different than this. But I think, I don't know if we need to do a little bit more research, but I mean, I think from talking to other board members, our main thing here is we trust these building admins, and we want them to be able to approve this without having to wait and jump through any hoops and, you know, email after email to try to get necessary things approved for them. And however that needs to be done.
There may need to be some training up front, you know, to ensure that, you know, what you look at, so they can look at that as well.
Yeah, we've been on the cumulative system for about 7+ months now. The buildings, for the most part, we are gonna have a follow-up training, probably in the first or second week of October. There's been a request for just kind of a follow-up now that we're 6+ months in. We haven't set the date for that yet, but we will. We'll get all the building secretaries together to participate in that and kind of go over, you know, some are more adept at it than others at this point. I think the high school is probably the most adept because they do it the most frequently. Elementary is less so because they don't do it as frequently as far as moving monies around within their account codes and so forth. And I agree that we need to get them trained properly because there can be, I mean, we've already had a situation, 2 weeks into the new year, I've got a building, which not to be named, already is $6,000 overspent in an account code that has no budget capacity because of a P card. So, I mean, they can move, they've got overall budget capacity, there's just not budget capacity in that line to which that purchase was tagged to. So we just need to work with them a little bit more.
It's a learning opportunity.
So maybe, so maybe some training, and then maybe we think about, you know, hey, if you can't find your receipt, you know, what are some ways that we can, you know, can they get a copy of the receipt? Because we're saying original receipt, so maybe a copy of receipt, a picture of a receipt, an email of a receipt. So if we could think through that kind of stuff
I think
before
that
we do our second read also would be great.
Okay, yeah, I think that verbiage is maybe a little dated. You know, we certainly accept, as a quote-unquote, an original receipt would be an Amazon cart, you know, checkout card, that's a quote-unquote an original receipt, even though you could print 100 of them if you wanted to. So yeah, I mean, we're not trying to stop anyone from being reimbursed or showing, you know, proper documentation for what they do. Some of this language, and I'm not sure, Mike, you might have been on the board at that time. Some of this language came from we had an audit about 5 years ago probably, where they did some sampling of P-card transactions. The district was found to have, of the sample transactions, I believe about 40% of them, we did not have appropriate documentation for the charges. We approached the board at that particular time, made them aware of that situation, and the board commissioned additional work from SAO to go into our P-cards and do a deeper dive. And from that deeper dive came some of the, you know, processes that we use today. So some of these were just an offshoot of that. Again, I think things are much better now than they were, but we did have, at one point in time, we did have some challenges in this area.
Does anyone else have comments or questions? Isaac?
No.
Michael?
No, ma'am.
Anything else, Mike?
No.
Mary Ann? Take that as a no. All right, so can we get a motion to approve first read of policy, procedure, and MOU for 6212?
Motion to approve. That's a mouthful, though.
First read of policy, procedure, and MOU for 6212. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? All right, first read is done. Thank you.
Yep.
Yeah, if you could just take the comments and stuff and, you know, feel free to reach out and, you know, we can work with you on it too. So.
Yeah, it sounds like I'll remove the payroll language, I will put in positions of the custodians, I will clarify receipts, kind of maybe broaden the definition of receipts, and I think that that's the main things that I've heard you say.
And if there's anything else, we can send it to you.
Yeah.
All right, so I think you're up there again.
I'm up
First read
again.
of policy and procedure 6210.
So let's just make a brief clarification. 6210 deals with purchase orders. 6212 deals with purchasing cards. Okay, that's
Thank you.
Riverview actually commingles theirs together, but Jamie and I talked about it. I think keeping them as separate is better, more clear. So first of all, the $15,000 threshold that's been in place for a long, long time. I looked. Riverview's is 50. Snohomish's aggregate of 300,000 is theirs. So I didn't think that 25 was out of line in recommending a change from 15 to 25. That's where that came from, and just sampling some of our other neighboring districts. They have, there's vested much more authority in their superintendent.
That's last year, maybe we jacked up to 100.
Yeah, I'm not sure whether that would be, you know, and again, I thought about this as a new incoming superintendent, does such a low number, is that, you know, is that concerning or not concerning to a new person or not? I just think it hasn't been changed for a long time, and based on what I looked at, it's low compared to others, so 25 is just a recommendation.
I think,
Does anyone there have comments or questions on the first read of the 6210? Isaac,
Nope.
Mike,
I'd
Michael,
agree that
Mary Ann?
I would agree that the number is a little low for that position, but we can talk about that later.
Yeah, I think it is too. I think we need to show, I think, a level of trust. You know, trust but verified.
Mhm.
And I think like especially 15,000 doesn't show a lot of trust.
Sure.
So, all right, can I get a motion to approve first read of policy and procedure 6210?
Motion to approve first read of policy and procedure 6210.
Could you say that with a little more excitement, please?
Probably not.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, opposed? All right.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Dr.
Dan Ballard.
thanks, Dan.
Second read of 3122.
So
Anybody have?
the one question that I will address, and I think I sent you an update in email that had to do with the procedure, some ways to verify participation rather than just turning off the camera, and that there's a couple of ways that we do it. One is a lot of the student work is tied into Canvas, the student's Canvas account. We can tell what they're doing in there or not. Second is if somebody is not doesn't have a camera on, the teacher has the discretion, and we can put it in practice that they have to verbally check in and participate orally in these. And that, I mean, we have kids that don't want to participate necessarily in class, and so it's always a trick to try to figure out how do we get them engaged, because that's when the richness of the learning starts to take place, when everybody is doing that. So I don't know if that meets what you're talking about, but
I read your comments, I actually responded. I liked all of your suggestions. I think, yeah, actually having those implemented would be fantastic, and would satisfy my concerns.
Anyone else have comments, concerns, questions? No?
No.
All right, so can we get approval of second read of 3122?
Motion to approve second read of 3122.
Woo-hoo! All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay. Second read of excuse me, 6216. My meds are wearing off.
I don't have the meds are wearing off on my agenda.
Anybody have thoughts, comments, questions on the exciting reimbursement for goods and services?
No.
No? All right, can I get a motion to approve second read of policy 6216?
A motion to approve the policy 6216.
Thank you, Isaac. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right. First read of policy 6220. Comments, questions, concerns?
I had brought up some comments, concerns about this, the change on really page 1.3. Ensuring the district takes steps to assure that, when possible, district will use small business, minority-owned business, women's business, enterprises, labor supplies, and firms. I don't think we should prioritize anybody. I'm suggesting instead blind bidding. In other words, I'd love to see removal of, a bidder's name, their, anything that can actually help us, anything that would identify which business we're looking at, and really just have bids based on what they're proposing, costs, value. Basically saying, I want to see bids who can provide the best quality work at the lowest price.
Would we
I
have someone
think that
like,
there's probably, I know, some reason that, because it's everywhere now, like, to make sure that we comply with things as far as like getting bids from different groups. So I think, Dan, can you have Lance or Greg look into that?
Yeah.
And see legally what we can and can't have on this policy?
Absolutely. I think this is a perfect way to, when those questions come up, this is the perfect way
Yes.
to handle it. So is it A3 you're speaking of?
A3, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely include bids from everybody. I just don't think that we should be choosing with any priority over the quality of the work that's going to be provided for its students and staff.
And this is exactly, just to throw in there, this is exactly like if something like this comes up, it's the exact perfect way to do it. And in the end, we might not all agree with it, we might not vote for it, but if we have a question or an issue, we let Dan know, he can find out with the attorney, what's legal, what's not legal, and then we go from there. So this is the perfect way to do it, so thank you for bringing it up. Anybody have anything else to add for this one?
I didn't bring it up, it was on the agenda.
No,
I'm giving you props, okay, just take it.
All right, I'll take it.
So the other one, Gigi, I think that I was sent a question on is, we don't have to put it out to bid for up to 40,000, but it would be good business to get.
That was my question. I was
Yeah.
wondering, since even though we don't have to, can we?
Yes.
Can we still ask for bids even though it's not required?
Estimates, bids, yes, you can. And I think that, I can think of a time when we had, we did some fence work it was quite a few years ago, and we only had 2 bidders, and they wanted 3, and the job was only $12,000 or $10,000, and they said, we don't have 3, and we couldn't, we tried numerous times to get a third person to bid, and we couldn't get it, or a third company to bid, and couldn't get it. So we can. One of the things that, I don't know how this plays a role, but it's worth considering, is a lot of the things that end up getting purchased are already pre-bid to some of these companies, so that it makes it a little easier to go through the process. But I think it's just, especially because we're here working with the public's money. We're not working with our own money. It's the public's money, and we want to spend it wisely. And so getting estimates on things under 40,000 should be the expectation.
Yeah.
quick question,
All right.
on the blind bidding, I don't mind that at all. How, if we don't get their names, how do we have someone that's not us?
Well, yeah, obviously.
Research and give us the.
Yeah, I mean, if we're, obviously we need to know who to contact
Yeah,
once we
right.
pick them.
Well, and
So,
also, doing like a check on them.
Sure.
Get due diligence.
Yeah.
Right, it would just be.
I get it, I get where you're going with that though. Cause right, we don't want names that I'm in construction, so I might see some names
There you go.
that can link me to, I get that,
Yeah.
yeah.
So I
All right, go ahead.
I'll just look at A3, get some questions answered on that.
Okay, so can I get a motion to approve first read of policy 6220?
I motion to approve first read of policy 6220.
Thank you, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, opposed? All right, motion passes. First read of policy 6511. Staff safety, we want our staff to be safe. Questions, comments on this one
None.
for the first read? Mary Ann, any questions, comments? No? Guys, doesn't look like anything. All right, if there's no comments or questions, can I get a motion to approve first read of policy 6511, please?
Motion to approve first read of policy 6511.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? All right, passes. Policies for October were attached, which is nutrition, capital assets, theft sensitive assets, and I guess that's the last one. All right, superintendent's report. Dan, take it away.
Okay, so I've got three categories. First one is staffing. Dan talked about enrollment. Just want to back up a little bit to last spring when we made some staffing reductions. We've added, well, obviously we added the office clerks into place back in midsummer. We've posted for office clerk at Sultan High School because that position was displaced due to her accepting the job in the counseling office as the registrar. So I've met with her and talked with her about consideration of whether or not she's interested in moving back to the previous position. She's considering that. I'm working with the elementary principals on their library time. It's been added back at the middle school, high school, but I gotta check on that because I told them to add it back right away, but I've gotta make sure it's all documented correctly. And so I think that what'll happen at the elementary, the recommendation will be to go from 20 hours a week to 25. It was 32 in one school and 20 in the other, but that's after speaking with the principals on what is needed. Board may feel different about that, but that's what they recommended to me. I didn't put any parameters on it other than we want to undo what we did because of enrollment, etc. The middle school is, I'm looking at math and STEM to see, what we need to do to make sure that kids are getting served in classrooms that aren't too overcrowded. And so the possibility is those would become not partial FTEs, but increased to some level, and I don't want to commit. I meet with them tomorrow to go over it. I would like to, and I would recommend to the board, and hope that you will approve, would like to hire a dean of students at Goldboro Elementary School. The two elementaries are up the most students. Goldboro has 355, 360 kids, and it has the least amount of administrative support, and in many ways, some of the biggest challenges as far as.
Is Heather still there?
No, she's
not.
gone. She's overwhelmed.
I was gonna say, she'd be jumping up and down right now to hear you say that.
Yeah. Well, she showed me a bruise on her arm today, and that's, I mean, I've been thinking about this days before this, and it's not good. Needs some help, and the budget capacity is there to serve kids, and we need to put it to work in that way. And like I said, things are in better shape. 63 more kids. What does that equate to? Another 500,000 at least.
I know that's something that she's been wanting for a long time. I for one am personally for that.
I am
I have
too.
no issues with that.
The high school, because we had capacity, each one of the schools generates what's called high poverty LAP funding, and so the building principals get some oversight as to how that money is spent. It's kind of a recent development for the high school because they just started collecting it. I think this will be their second year or their third year. Sultan Elementary and Gold Bar have collected it for quite a while. Interestingly, the demographics of this school are changing. It went from free and reduced in the 50s to now closer to the low 40s. And that has to do with people that are moving in and different things, though they still collect the money. So I authorized for the high school to hire through 512 LAP funding a behavior specialist that they used to have. because we've been trimming this back over the last few years. And they are also gonna hire a para out of the High Poverty Lab money. My greatest concern, and giving this to you, is I'm probably confusing everybody with all the different things that are happening in each of the schools, but I'm having conversations with each of the principals based on their needs. We're not being careless, but being responsible, because I think you've heard Paul say, you've heard Heather say, I've said it, is that one of the things you go through in the beginning of a school year is adjusting your service model to meet the needs of the students the best that you can. And when we cut back, which we did last spring and summer, and then ended up in a better spot than we anticipated, I think it's important that we put some of that back into where it needs to be, and that's the classroom and the schools. And so my recommendation is, that's without even talking about some of the things Paul's talking about, because he's evaluating IEP loads, unique student needs. I think I mentioned in my weekend letter that there's 3 students that we're trying to get out of district, and it's not, when I say trying to get out of district placement, I would say it like we're trying to get appropriate service. That's what we're trying to get, appropriate service. A school system our size, or any school system for that matter, it's very challenging to have all of the skilled staff. When I say skilled staff, the things that you need, we don't have a psychiatrist on staff. Some kids need some oversight with psychiatrists, just as an example. There could be some other training that is needed. And so recommend that you give me the authority to post for a Dean of Students at Gold Bar Elementary, and make some of those other changes, and we will come back with a kind of a recalculation of and an estimate of what we think the cost will be as it relates to our current fund balance and what we will project to be the reality of a fund balance in January of 2025.
Does anyone have any, because that's basically just gonna be an order from us to do this. Does anyone have any issues with the items that Dan just talked about? Isaac?
I agree with getting the help at Gold Bar, and I like I like everything. I like it all.
Mike?
I agree. Go forth and
Michael?
hire the dean.
It sounds like there's a lot of need all over.
There is.
Do we need to evaluate the total need? I mean, because we're talking about special needs for our special students, a counselor, a dean. It sounds like we need all these people, and do we need to evaluate that before we just say, go spend the money on this one?
Well, let me bring Paul into this discussion, because he can.
And we are talking about all the ones that he just said, so the high
we're gonna
school
approve buying
office,
all
we're
of them.
talking about SES increasing library hours,
Yeah.
SMS increasing math and STEM, Gold Bar, Dean of Students, and the high school out of High Poverty Lab, a behavior specialist and para. So it's all of that combined into, that's what the needs of the district are as a whole at the moment.
Okay.
And then we're gonna let Dan know if, yes, we want him to go ahead and fill
So
those needs,
essentially,
or-
we're serving many more kids with a reduced staffing model.
Can we get an email with all this on it?
Yes. Yeah,
Yes.
That's, yeah.
And it's just because, I mean, we have, 50, net extra kids this year than we budgeted to have. So I know, even just like at the middle school, I know that, classes were big and they need some help.
So I'll tell you what, I'll bring Paul in on C. You guys don't see it. I've got a presentation here that basically has notes of this. The second one is human resources. So that position is posted. The first screening, or the first consideration is set to take place Friday the 27th.
How many applicants do you have?
So we have 5 qualified, it looks to me like, that they're worth strong consideration. I'm going to put it together today, and I'll send an email when I get home that will ask some stakeholders, the union representatives, the district office staff, administrators to come and screen the applicants.
I'd like to be involved in this, please.
Yeah, you can do that as well, and then try to interview up to 5 if they're all qualified to do it, the first week of October. So that's where that stands. So I think there's some good qualified people there. Right now, Paul is doing a lot of the human resources work. I'm doing a little bit. I'm interviewing subs. I have an interview tomorrow with somebody to sub at the elementary level, and I'm just working through the people that have applied to be substitutes. I sit down with them, ask them questions, we make sure that they want to be around kids for the right reasons, and then we go through the check and then approve them, and that is, we've had a real stressed substitute pool, so hopefully we can add to that in a way that'll make it easier for everybody. It kind of went downhill with COVID like everything else did. It just didn't recover. Appropriate student service models, Paul, want to talk about that a little bit? When talk about that, you're looking to hire a teacher at the high school. We are looking to find the appropriate service for 3 students that we're having a difficult time serving in our traditional brick and mortar schools. There are other little loose ends. Can you give the board a general overview of that?
Yeah, they start with the high school. So what we look at, I guess what I look at, depends on whether special ed or HR now. So it is the caseload pieces. So we have in our collective bargaining agreement with SEA limits on the number of caseload for our special ed teachers, and also is for our occupational therapists, physical therapists, gen ed teachers as well. And that cutoff is at 26. So once we go over 26, then we have to start looking at solution-based things, and a lot of that solution-based is compensation. So just so you have that in perspective in mind, I have 2 teachers up there at the high school. One has 45 kids on her caseload, and the other one has 41. Have to solve that problem.
We need to hire somebody.
So that's why we need somebody at the high school piece. At the middle school, it's like Dan said, it's the number of kids we've gotten this year. It's an increase just for the kids coming in, but it's also the needs. We have some students that are severe and profound. In other words, they require 2 people to work with them individually in order to keep them and others safe. And in that particular classroom, you have up to 8 staff right now. Well, not up to 8, they need up to 8. We're short still to work with these students. That's when we begin to look at that program can't address the needs of those students with 8 adults into that classroom and all the other kids with special needs in that classroom. You run into sensory issues, you run into not enough room, you got kids at different levels of differentiation. So we're looking at how do we address that. Their needs are significantly different. A student is intellectually around a 40 IQ versus another kid that's sitting up at a 65. There's a significant difference in what they can do academically. So, and there's physical needs in that classroom as well. We have at least 2 students that are what we call medically fragile. So that's something that needs to be addressed in there. And then here at this school, we have 2 SLC classrooms. One is specifically focused on behavior. The kids are low intellectually, but behavior, they don't know how to do school at all. And they're the primary kids, kindergarten and above, just into 2nd grade. But these students, a lot of them are not potty trained, a lot of them are nonverbal. We have quite a few of them that use what we call AAC devices, which is basically an iPad that has a program on there that can talk for them. So then they might push a button that says food or lunch, not quite lunch right now, but food. We work up to, so they can actually use that device to create a sentence. And it takes a process of doing. But anyway, those are the kind of the high needs, and that's all the way across. You go to Gold Bar, same thing, and addressing Heather's bruising. We have a student down there that was recommended for a program. The student came from a different district. They're able to provide as many intense services that we can't provide here. So
Came
This
from
example
a school
was-
district of 30,000 kids.
Yeah, so this particular student, they had two students work, or two students, they had two staff working with this student in a single classroom by himself. We can't do that here. So, those are some examples of where we're at, and it's all the way, all buildings in terms of this, trying to figure out, and lots of behavior issues from hitting, we have a student that impulsively reaches out and attacks another student, chokes them, grabs students by the hair, throws them down. Behavior that we don't normally see. And this is a student that's, needs some different supports than what we can offer here. So that's just kind of a glimpse at some of the needs this year.
Thank you, Paul.
Yeah.
It's not uncommon to have adjustment challenges, because I think sometimes especially in some rural areas, you see a higher incidence of some of the challenge. Good district that has some comparable challenges is Grand Falls, very similar. But, we have to adjust, and part of that is to make sure that we're hiring appropriate staff, or we're making sure, like at the high school, those caseloads are just unacceptable. But we have to hire somebody. That's what's got to happen to address that.
So on the high school one, is that the one that's gonna be covered by the high poverty lap?
No,
That's separate.
two different things. I was talking on the lap part with classified staff. This is a classroom teacher,
Okay.
or this is a case manager teacher is what it is, that can actually manage the IEPs, and it's done in a way that's within the load that one person can manage.
Okay. All right, what else do you have for us?
So 30th, next Monday, recommend that we do a special board meeting. And we do a presentation, I sent it to you over the weekend, from D.A. Davidson, having to do with the November 5th bond. The AV has been estimated to have increased by 6.9%. The amount of construction in the last 2 or 3 years is $250 million in our area. These things all, they all make a difference in how this all plays out. It actually, as your AV increases, doesn't necessarily mean that your taxes will increase. But we are growing, and we need to go through this process and be available to answer any questions that anybody has. Because that's one of the challenges that we've dealt with here is disinformation, a lot of it. And it's very difficult in a very complicated manner. How do you answer these questions? And so I think having an event that's on tape with board members present and questions getting answered is one of the steps that we have to do, because it is not being made up that we need more space. It's a bond for space. And
What time on the 30th?
6 p.m. And Corey Davison would be here, or excuse me, Corey Plager from D.A. Davidson. And one of the things that you saw, I think it was slide 13, the cost for an average $500,000 home is $400 and some per year, and it was about $36 a month. Well, that price has already come down just because of what's built in, but we need to answer those questions, and we need to help folks that are on fixed incomes know how to apply for the waiver and the ways. Because we can't just continue to buy portables and portable bathrooms. There's got to be a longer term fix. At the same time, I understand it's real that these things are they cost money, and so answering that and trying to figure out the sweet spot of what we can do is important. And then I think continuing to tell people that we were able to secure 50 acres for $455,000, which is almost unheard of, to build a school. It'll be an asset of the school district and the community. These schools are the communities. They are assets of the community. I'm just lucky enough to work here for a while, and as you know, that's coming to an end here soon. But I will still be a citizen, and I want to be a citizen in a community that's healthy and doing the best that they can on behalf of the various needs within reason. So,
Is everybody available on that day, or whoever can come, if you can't, you
What,
understand?
what
but-
time in the
6
evening?
p.m.
6.
And here?
6 on Monday.
That sounds good.
yeah, they'll be.
It'll be recorded just in case,
Huh?
but
I'm not available. I'll be at
Well, we haven't
Legoland,
posted.
Kansas City
Okay. I
on
can,
Monday.
I can do 5 or 6 if that matters to anybody.
I
6 is
think
better.
6 usually works better for like Isaac and
That's what I thought.
Michael
Okay.
and Mike. So yeah, okay, so 6 next week, and then,
3 by 4.
can you get with me tomorrow about the other stuff we talked about earlier?
Yes,
About
I'll make a call.
the,
Yep.
policy updates for the athletics?
Oh, excuse me.
And then we can see if we
Yes.
need to, we can
Yes.
schedule something this week if we need to.
Yes.
And then you're gonna go ahead and, the staffing, I think it sounded like everyone was okay with the staffing that you mentioned, is that correct?
Yep.
All right, how fast can you, get, Gold Bar into the students?
We can get it posted, it has not been posted. Has the
Perfect.
teacher at the
Do
high
you have
school
any-
been posted?
Go ahead.
Just today.
Yeah, so.
What else do you have?
That's all I have. Was there a question you wanted me to give a stab at answering? There was a question from the public that,
Oh, yeah, I think Kayla sent it to you. I forgot that we had an emailed, comment at one of our last meetings. And did Kayla send it to you? It was the person that said they didn't want to approve the budget because of the bond, but they misunderstood that the
Oh, yeah.
budget has
Okay.
nothing to do with the bond. The bond's not part of the budget. So I think that was
I'll
just
read the
a-
email without reading any names. So the question was this: please include my comments and concerns for the record. Urge the student school, we'll talk about it. Nan can help here. We'll just answer the question right here. I urge the Sultan School District to revisit the proposed budget because it appears to be a budget buster for community taxpayers. The proposed $135 million bond seems excessive for a small school district. The resulting 42% increase in the annual school levy far exceeds the rate of inflation and far beyond the means of young families and stretched budgets and seniors on limited incomes. I suggest less costly solutions for classroom additions by better allocating space on existing district properties. The proposal to build a new grade school on a large forested parcel comes with a host of legal, environmental, and transportation challenges. District website informs that if the bond passes, groundbreaking for the forest parcel would begin January of 2026, which is not consistent with the Snohomish County Code SCC 30-43F-220, which means a 6-year development moratorium on a conversion of forest for non-forest use. The forest site is shown on various maps and characterized by numerous critical areas. These include steep slopes, county, DNR intervention, seismic erosion, landslide hazard, fish-bearing streams, shallow aquifers, the hydric soils. This site, abundant trees play an important role in purifying our air and maintaining water quality. The City of Sultan has fallen below acceptable transportation level of service. Currency standards on the Sultan Basin Road. The minor arterial has been inadequate for years and is considered failing. There is no remedy for site. So there's a lot of questions here, but I'll start on the big picture. Before we purchased the property, we did a feasibility study. We had it, Harmson came in. There's a lot of things that the maps show that aren't in fact there. There's not a river running through the property. There's not, any of those problems. The soils, he said, in a report, and I'll make sure the report is posted online if it's not there, are perfect for this. There are a couple of different places you can build. The 6-year, one of the challenges that comes into place that I think makes this extra challenging, as all of the community members, including whoever wrote this one, they care and they mean well. But when we go start lifting laws and, you know, statutes and different things and start posting as if it is, I think it causes just more confusion. You know, all of this stuff was addressed in a feasibility study. And so, you know, we've worked directly with DNR, that's who I bought the property from, is them. You know, some of the questions, I'm not even sure how to answer them, but there's just not really another option unless you build up or build out, you know, I guess you could build behind the middle school or whatnot. This school right here was built for 416 kids, and it's currently got 700 in it. I'm just not sure what to do.
Well, I think one of the big things in that, that they sent in, that the budget and the bond are two separate things, because that seemed like the first thing they were talking about, don't approve the budget because the bond is too big or something.
So let me
totally
address
separate.
the 135 million talking point. That came up during the last one, and where it came from was the policy center had put a thing out saying, hey, school districts are being dishonest. They're not telling you the truth. And, you know, I stood back and I said, I don't even know what they're talking about. This district has passed numerous bonds over the years. The last one that was passed was 1998, that did something at the high school and did something here. It's like a mortgage in that you borrow $1 million, and if you're borrowing it over 20 or 30 years, you pay interest on it. This bond is no different than that. To borrow $79 million, there is interest that you pay back over the 20 or 21 years. That's how it gets to 135 million. I don't even know if that number's correct, because interest rates are going down. But those numbers scare people. If I go out and say that if you have a $500,000 house and it will cost you $426 over the course of a year, and this is your monthly payment, that monthly includes all of this. The interest isn't some separate payment. And I think there was a few people pushing that narrative last time. Very difficult to deal with.
Well, on this specific email, why don't we just, I think it might be good practice for us to just respond.
Yeah. I'll
to
reach
the
out by
person that's
email, and I'm
submitted it,
happy to meet with
and
the
then
individual.
put it in the record, put it in the minutes.
Yeah. There's no doubt, the reality of these things is they're hard. But at the same time, we don't have good answers. There's not a beneficiary that's gonna dump a bunch of money. The schools are the communities. They are assets of the community. They will be forever. Those of us that work here we're passers-by that are lucky enough to serve your kids for a while. But I will reach out.
Anybody have anything else? All right, again, sorry that I wasn't able to be there in person. You'll thank me by not catching COVID. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
A motion to adjourn.
Everybody jumps on that one. All right, all in favor?
Bye.
Aye. All right, we're done. I don't have anything. Bang.
So, Gigi and Marion, can you stop by the district office?